Rupert is in Gatwick. Rupert, good morning. Have you changed your mind about ULEZ?
No, I haven't.
Okay, why?
The thing is, Ollie, look, I echo what the last caller said. This is just the cynical way of taxing people. I mean, it's all it's telling people is if you can afford to pollute, you can drive and you can pollute as much as you want, as long as you can pay for the pollution, as it were. So it's pay as you pollute, and it really has a great impact on the working class. Now working class people, such as, let's say, a plumber, let's say, right? He has to if he's got an old van, let's say, old vehicle that's non-ULEZ compliant. He's got to, every time he goes for a job in London, let's say, he's got to pay the fine, pay the £12.50 fine, and also if it's during office hours, well, he's going to have to pay the congestion charge. Plus, he's got to pay parking charge as well. So that's why tradesmen do not go into central London during the day now. And if you live in central London, you're going to have trouble getting your washing machine fixed. You're going to have trouble getting the plumber or an electrician to fix anything.
So I think I think it's possible to claim it back possibly as a business expense in the instance you're describing there. But this idea that sort of the working class is being unfairly targeted with this, I think it's worth mentioning some statistics on this. London's poorest households are least likely to own a car. Right, of the households that earn less than £10,000, 78% of them do not own a car. Of households that earn between 10,000 and 20, well, that's not necessarily the same thing. You started by saying, this unfairly discriminates. This unfairly discriminates against the working class. The working class extends beyond quite.
It is a working class job, isn't it?
Well, it depends, doesn't it? Really,
plumbers and electricians. It's a working class job. So that they've got to have transport to get in and out of London, and that's going to be an unfair tax on them. And also, not everyone can afford to replace their cars to a ULEZ compliant car. So think about people who have to drive into, let's say, the outskirts. I mean, look, even the outskirts of London are affected now, such as Croydon Council areas or Sutton Council. So for example, you got an office job. Let's say you live in outside the M25, and you drive into Croydon to work. Well, you're again, you're hit with the ULEZ, aren't you? So it's going to force everyone either to go on public transport, or
if you had an office job,
if
you had an office job, you would use public transport, wouldn't you?
Not necessarily.
Well, I think you probably should, shouldn't you? Why wouldn't you?
Well, not the office. It's about a mile away from the nearest train station, or if you've got to get about
and then a bus,
three or four buses, to get to your office,
and you can walk. This is really interesting, Rupert. Actually, this is really, really interesting because I'm not necessarily saying this is your fault, by the way, but I think our inability as a society to imagine life beyond the car, right? I think it's something like, I'm doing this off the top of my head, but it's somewhere between 80 and 90% of all journeys taken in Britain are taken in a car. And that includes walking, cycling, public transport, train. Now, that is an extraordinary statistic, but in reality, a huge amount of journeys, for example, you're saying, well, what about if it's a mile from the station to the office? That is a 15-minute walk. That's not insurmountable. I know for some people with disabilities, yes, certainly, and there's a conversation to be had there. But for a lot of people, a mile is walkable. It's certainly cyclable, or you could get the bus. Why is it that you have to drive?
Well, but the thing is, not everyone lives within a mile of their work, of their place of work.
But certainly, and outside London, where the public transport is woeful, I totally understand the argument. And again, I think it's a problem with urban planning. I think it's a problem with infrastructure development. I think we're talking, about the way we design our cities and towns and the way that we live.
Well, look, until that day comes, people will have to drive. Well, not everyone will have to drive, but some people will have to drive. But
probably not.
For some people,
but probably not have to drive into our urban metropolises, the centres where there is good public transport.
Well, look, Ollie, I can remember, right, the days when London was clogged full of traffic.
Yeah.
With cars burning 4-star leaded petrol.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember leaded petrol.
I don't.
Petrol lead in it.
Right. So
a poisonous substance, but we're still here. We're still alive. You know.
Are you recalling fondly the years in which we could ingest leaded petrol?
Yeah. I mean, actually, I didn't grow up in London, but London was, it's my second home, as it were.
Do you support the return of arsenic in wall paint?
Well, that's a different matter, isn't it? But
it's a poisonous chemical in something that surrounds us, isn't it? So I think it's kind of the same.
Well, look, it's proved that traffic fumes are not as bad as we've been told it is.
What do you mean by? Well, come on now, Rupert. What do you mean by that? Come on.
They breathed in London polluted air. All the people.
And so when you look at the increasing rates of early onset asthma, when you look at the widespread instances of pulmonary disease and the repeated and consistent scientific evidence that shows that air pollution is an aggravating factor in many, many different forms of mortality, I don't
believe it. I don't believe it.
Oh, that's fascinating. That's fascinating, Rupert. Why don't you believe it?
I do not believe it.
Why?
It's just made up by the statistics. Can be manipulated. You know that. I mean, you can make statistics prove anything you want to prove. Do
you believe that? This isn't an example of one scientist, one paper that's massaged the data. There is a widespread scientific and biomedical health consensus around this. Do you disbelieve all of those experts? Do you disbelieve their expertise, their time in the field, their hard yards, their research?
Yes. Who pays those people? Who pays them to come up with these statistics? See, they've been sponsored by people, and if they don't come with the statistics that satisfies their sponsors, they won't be employed again. That's all it comes. It's always down to money, Ollie.
Rupert,
Someone's paying those people.
When you go to your GP surgery or a hospital, do you trust the doctors there?
Yes, I do.
So what's the difference?
Yeah, but they're not being paid to come up with figures, are they?
But they also think that air pollution is harming you.
They're not mouthpieces for governments or organisations. Actually, let me just rephrase that. They're not spokespeople for organisations, who have a point to prove.
But none of these people are being paid to promote ULEZ. They're scientists exploring the causes of the consequences of air pollution. I actually know one of them on a personal level. To be honest with you, I know a guy. He's a very, very intelligent bloke. Initially, he did a postdoctoral thesis looking at the causes of pancreatic cancer, and now he's been focusing his research on the consequences of air pollution for cancer. It is bad, and as far as I'm aware, he is not taking Sadiq Khan's dime.
Well, look, I mean, all these, statistics to prove this, that, and the other. There's not.
But Rupert, what is it about? What is it about proof? What is it about reality that you find so unpalatable? It is.
No, it's brainwashing. It's brainwashing.
Well, okay, so what sort of proof would you need?
It's like climate change. It's all tied in with climate change and global warming.
There it is.
It's all part of the same package. Is to control us. Is to manipulate people and how they think.
Right.
So people can be controlled. Look, a scared population is an easier to control population.
Rupert, could I put it to you that perhaps the reality of climate change is quite scary for you, and that it's easier.
Not for me. I don't believe a word of it.
Well, yeah, no. Listen to what I'm saying. And that it's easier to deny that reality and confront what is certainly a pretty horrific set of circumstances if we don't do anything about it, and that therefore it is easier to deny that reality than it is to confront it. That actually, you're more scared. You're more scared.
No, look, Ollie, look. You know that during Roman times, right?
Right. Yeah.
It was
we're growing wine in Kent. Yeah.
Times than now.
Yeah.
Did you know that? I mean,
I do know that. Yeah.
Romans were growing wine. They're growing grapes as far as Yorkshire.
I just said that. Yeah.
We can't do that now.
So
why is that?
So you're aware that climate oscillates, right? It moves backwards and forwards, just like there was an ice age. And then there's a period of warming. No. Come on now. Let's play fair. And that it is the rapidity at which the planet is now warming, for which there is no historical precedent. There is no other no other period in the history of planet Earth where we have warmed as radically and as quickly. And the problem is that because large parts of this are to do with human activity.
Well,
also, we still make wine in Kent, and French vineyards are buying up the land in Kent, right? Because champagne's getting too hot, the grapes are getting too sweet, they can't make their sparkling wine, so they're buying up the vineyards in Kent. So, I mean, to your point, kind of, no.
No, but we're still not warmer than Rome and Britain, are we?
But what does that mean? What?
It's nothing to do with burning fossil fuels. It's the Earth's natural cycle. You know, it
Rupert,
cools down, it warms up.
Did you know that there was a deliberate and concerted effort by the fossil fuel companies to pay scientists to lie about climate change? We have evidence of that. Why is it that when it comes to air pollution, you think that there's some kind of scientific conspiracy theory for which there is currently no evidence, and when it comes to pollution, when it comes to climate change, and there is evidence of the conspiracy of scientists being paid to launch these front organisations and to create a sense of debate where really there should be none? Why is it that you don't pay any attention to it there? They've known since the 1950s.
Really? Oh, well, anyway.
Yeah.
Look, none of that...
There it is. Oh, really? Oh, well, anyway. OK, let's go to Oliver in South Harrow. Oliver, good morning. What's on your mind?
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
He has been put back in Colorado, a ballot. Don't you read the news? I've just watched the news, and CBS News is talking about it. He's been put back.
Okay, we'll get on that momentarily. For the time being, though, Oliver, why do you think, or do you think he should be permitted to run? Do you think that if you incite insurrection, that should bar you from office?
No, I mean,
no.
He said to go to the building, the establishment building, peacefully and patriotically. He did incite violence. He did say to go to the Supreme Court, wherever the established building was, peacefully and patriotically. He didn't incite violence at all. So that's why I'm asking you: has he been convicted for that? No, he hasn't been convicted in any cases. So this is just a witch hunt against the man. They know he's going to win. Biden is not going to win, sir.
So
they know that.
So when he
get rid of him.
When he said, "We will stop the steal. We won this election, and we won it by a landslide. We will never give up. We will never concede. It doesn't happen. If you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. We are going to the capital.
Peacefully and patriotically." And this is the phrase that's been cut all the time when you broadcast the news. Every time they show his speech on the TV, they always cut that part deliberately. You're not stupid, people.
If you whip up a mob, if you incite them to march on the Capitol
peacefully,
and you say, you add the caveat, peacefully, when the entire other speech, the entirety of the rest of the speech has been... I want you to understand, Oliver, the phrase, if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. Think about how emotive that sentence is, and then contrast that with peacefully make your voice heard. The two statements are in complete contradiction of one another.
Has he been charged? Has he?
Well, he's currently facing 91 criminal charges.
Has he been charged in any of them? No.
Yes, he's facing 91 criminal charges.
Has he been charged? Again, I'm asking you again. Has he been charged?
Yeah, and I keep telling you, he faces 91 criminal charges. Yes, he has been charged. You can either engage with the substance of what I'm saying, mate. You can keep repeating yourself, but I will just drop you down and I'll talk to someone who's a bit more sensible.
Oh, I know you hate Trump, but it's not going to change the fact that he's going to win. You can't stop the man. He's going to win.
We've got it.
Yeah?
We've got it.
Yeah?
You're a fanboy. Okay. We've got it.
Yes, sir.
What do you like about him?
I think you mistake his presidency and his personality. His presidency before the COVID was excellent.
Fantastic just before the national crisis in which hundreds of thousands of Americans died. It was great before that, wasn't it?
Keep hating Trump and you make him even more popular. Yeah? I wish you...
Why do you think that is? Why do you think that is?
Because people aren't stupid. People have an alternative source of information. They can listen to you, the media...
This is it, though, isn't it, mate?
On the internet,
alternative facts, alternative information. Right? This is what we're getting with. It's the idea that you can just listen to something that you agree with and that you'll believe it. Like, yeah.
Listen, sir. Before I go,
you're not enjoying the conversation.
Rise from the wreckage. He will rise from the wreckage and scattered and walk to the White House to the victory. This is all I'm going to say. You can't stop the man. You can't stop the man. He will win.
He was stopped.
Biden's not going to win.
Biden's
not going to win.
He was stopped by a relatively geriatric Joe Biden 4 years ago, wasn't he? So I think to sort of describe him as a sort of
Biden
unstoppable force.
Win, yeah, he's not going to win.
Well, he won the last time round, didn't he?
Oh, that was just a fluke, but not this time.
Oliver, do you think Joe Biden won that election?
No, because Joe Biden is the most racist president I've ever seen in my life, and he knows that. Black people...
In contrast to Donald Trump.
Oh, Donald Trump, he did so well. He did so well for the black community and for the Hispanic. That's why they want him back, I'm telling you.
By which metric is your sort of appraisal of that?
22% of black people support the man and 42% Hispanic. So once you got all that support...
How many did you say?
Biden can't win. Biden cannot
Did you say 20,
without the black vote.
22%? What about the other 78%?
Yeah?
What about the other 78%?
The number keeps growing.
Right, okay. Well, just 78% left to go, Oliver. You'll get there in the end. We're through the looking glass, ladies and gentlemen. We're through the looking glass. It's the problem with stuff like this. You just don't. At times, you almost don't know what to say. Like you can sort of present. You can present facts. You can present information, and it doesn't get through. That people will just believe what they want to believe, regardless. Oliver thinks Donald Trump is the least racist president, certainly in comparison to Joe Biden. Well, that least racist president said the following: "Thank you, it's true. And these are the best and the finest. When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're not sending you. They're not sending you. They're sending people that have lots of problems. They're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists. And some, I assume, are good people." Good of him to assume that some Mexicans are good people. The rest of them, rapists. I mean, it's appalling stuff. So to come on and tell me that you think that man is less racist than Joe Biden, I don't buy it. You know, you can say something like that. You have to back it up. What's the evidence for it? Jordan is in New Jersey, Lakewood, New Jersey. Jordan, good morning. I suspect actually maybe it's good evening for you. Should billionaires exist?
Good evening, Dolly. I hope it's a happier conversation than our last one, but it's good to speak to you again anyway.
Okay.
I think that billionaires have a right to exist. I think that no one should be able to tell anyone how much money they're allowed to have. I would say outright, I come from pretty low class background. My parents have never owned a home and they're in their 50s. I don't think I'll ever own a home unless I marry someone whose parents will help me out. But at the moment, I don't think I'll own a home. But I don't think the government has any right to take away people's money. The only reason government exists is to enable society to function in its best way as possible.
So does it not sound, Jordan, like society is not functioning in the best way possible if neither you nor your parents can afford to own a home? That sounds to me like there's something's gone fundamentally wrong.
You could say that. I think if my parents were around 100 years ago, they'd probably be 150 years ago when there was no open, free economy like there is now, I think my parents would probably be in the streets or in the workhouses like in Victorian times. I think we're living in the best times ever. We have food, we have comfort. We complain way too much, our generation. We have things that no other generation ever had. I don't think it's right to say the cost of living crisis is painful, it's horrible. I'm not saying it isn't. I mean, my family's very affected by it. But to be fair, we're better off than anyone who lived 100 years ago. I mean, we're complaining about things that people 100 years ago didn't even dream of. The working hours, 7-day-a-week work, the things they had to do, and the freedoms that they didn't have. We live in a great society, and part of that is the fact that there's massive billionaires who invest in massive companies and give people jobs. Most people work for the billionaires.
When I say to you that 1 in 9 Brits skipped a meal in the last 3 months, that's from YouGov, that doesn't sound to me like capitalism's divine bounty. That doesn't sound to me like we're raking it in. It sounds like an economy ordered and organised in favour of the super wealthy.
Well, to me, it sounds like something else. I think I'm now in America and I've seen the other side, and I think it's ridiculous.
You've seen the untrammelled bounty of capitalism.
We haven't, and I haven't seen it. I've seen the where I am now. People are doing much better than their equivalent jobs. They're getting much higher wages than the equivalent in England. I mean, the average wage in America
is much higher.
Something about $60,000 a year.
It's much higher.
And why is that? It's much higher over there, and obviously life can be more expensive. If you want to live out, you can live out in any of the Midwest states, and you can buy yourself a nice house. I live in a very expensive area, but I mean, I don't live there. I study there. If I lived here, I would be renting some sort of basement or something. But the reality is, I think that when taxes are low, like they are in America, they're not low enough, then the economy grows and people have the ability to have jobs. I think the reason why Britain is the sick man of Europe, which we are, is we haven't taken advantage of any freedoms. We're not reducing taxation is so high. Nobody wants to invest in the UK. We're not a country that people like investing in. We see this with all the companies that are being bought out by Spanish companies. O2 is owned by Spanish. Half the car companies are being sold out because nobody wants to pay. So, sorry.
I think the economic comparisons between the UK and the US are slightly mute, because you're talking about the dollar being the global fiat-tethered currency. You're talking about a country with a population of more than 300 million people, vast natural resource wealth. To compare our two economies, I think I don't think it's the reason that in some states you have slightly lower taxes than you do here in Britain.
Well, we do actually have natural resources. We're not using them.
Not on the same scale as the States.
Well, of course not, but we're not as big a country. We're not drilling enough oil. We're not getting enough gas out, natural gas. We're not doing any of these things. We're literally tying our hands behind our backs. We're not allowing ourselves to grow. I mean, people always talk about dividing the pie more fairly. I'm saying this to someone whose parents are on universal credit. We're dividing the pie more fairly. Why not grow the pie? Why shouldn't there be more companies, more businesses? People should be encouraged to make money. Yes, I don't like Jeff Bezos. I think he's a nasty guy.
Because
but
someone
people
else
need to be encouraged to make money.
Someone else has the pie, and they're eating about 95% of it, and then the crumbs that fall from the table down to you, the little guy underneath. That's what you get. That's a probably more apt allegory for the organisation of our economy.
Would it be able to get you higher if we had more money in the tax coffers? Because more people were investing, we'll be able to divide that up much. There'd be more to divide up.
How about we just take more money from the super wealthy? You get the same outcome.
Well, if we take more money,
more tax take.
No, we don't. If we take money from the super wealthy, then they leave the UK and they go to countries like America.
I think it's a bit of a fallacy.
Then we have even less money.
The idea that someone would uproot their life, move their children, their family, leave their friends behind, go and live somewhere else as a result of what? Because they have to pay a couple percent extra tax.
One specific person.
Well, no, but I don't think there's any data to suggest that capital flight is real. I don't think it happens in practice. Look at the Scandinavian countries.
What happens we talk about it in the health service all the time. We're talking about how nurses and doctors are going to Australia and Canada to get better salaries. If we could talk about if it happens there, it certainly happens otherwise. I know personally people who are. I think that's kind of
the opposite though, Jordan, isn't it? That's people moving because they don't earn enough.
Yeah,
that's people leaving because their salaries are too low.
Yeah, and hear the same thing. If I'm having to give away all my money to taxes, why should I do that if I could have my company?
I'm not saying
in
you should, Jordan. Actually, you're the person I'm saying shouldn't give all their money away in taxes. You've said already that your parents are on universal credit, that you don't own a house. I'm not saying that you should pay excessive taxes. I'm saying that billionaires should pay excessive taxes. Those are two different things.
But they don't like it. People, unfortunately,
tough luck. They don't like it.
Well, why is it? But then, if it's not tough luck, because I lose out. If they don't like it, they don't like the British economy.
How do you lose out?
Who am I going to be in? Because let's say, for example, if I want to be an accountant for somebody, and I want to work for a big, massive real estate company,
less than 5%. Less than 5% of the people in Britain make £80,000 a year. How many of them do you think are making millions? How many of them are making billions? Not that many. We're not talking about huge numbers of people being affected by this.
I agree. That's precisely the problem. There should be way more billionaires. There should be much more millionaires. And then people like me will be able to get nice, decent salaries where we're getting 60, 70,000 a year instead of measly 25, 30,000. It's ridiculous how low the salaries are in the UK. I don't want to come back to the UK. I don't want to come back anyway, as we spoke on our last conversation, but I don't want to come back because all my money gets taken away. That's A. And B is I'm making a measly salary. You live in the United States, there's low taxes, much lower. I mean, look at the state of Florida. I mean, I'm living in New Jersey, which is studying in New Jersey, but if I would be moving somewhere and opening up a company, I'd want to go to Florida. There's no state income tax there.
Alternately, we could tax wealth and corporations at the same rate that we tax labour, and then use that money to properly fund our public services, etc., which would mean, if the provision of services was higher and better, you wouldn't necessarily need as high a salary because you aren't paying for things like healthcare, which you certainly have to in the States.
Well, there is Medicaid if you're not earning a big enough salary, but that's not.
I'm confused, Jordan. What is it? On the one hand, I counter your point, and then you just argue the opposite.
No, I don't. I'm not. Can you explain to me why I'm saying the opposite? I'm saying a very simple thing.
You're saying that.
2 points over here.
Okay, go on.
2 points over here. The first point is that poor people when rich people are rich, poor people can become middle class. When rich people are not there, when there is no big companies to work for, I can't make a good salary.
You're not.
Because when the rich are happy to be in this country and people are money hungry, when the rich feel like they're going to be taxed 50% and they're not going to be able to have a super yacht in this country and they go somewhere else and open up their company's branch somewhere else, I don't have a job. That's how it works. When they don't pay, when there isn't a lot of them here, then the taxes are also smaller.
You're not seriously.
People like me don't have a job.
You're not seriously bringing trickle down economics to this conversation.
I definitely am.
You are.
That is how it works.
Okay.
Of course I am.
What do you mean? Of course you are.
Moral point. My second point is a moral point. What right does the government have to take away money from someone who made it legally?
Oh, okay. So you're just opposed to taxation, full stop.
No, I don't, because...
You just said, what right does the government have to take away that money? It's the entire nature of our society, right? It's that those with the broadest shoulders carry the heaviest burden.
Why is it like that? Because society cannot function if there are poor people ravaging the streets and
this is some like anarcho-capitalist stuff, Jordan. This is like and the weak must suffer what they must.
Is it? Why is it?
Well, yeah, you're saying that the government doesn't have any right to tax people.
No, I did not say the government has no right to tax people, but the whole thing is that really, if we look at it from the perspective, the starting point is that really people should be able to keep all their money. But we have problems in society. We cannot have poor people who are dying in the streets. We cannot have people who can't afford their healthcare. We can't have people who are suffering so much. We can't have all of that.
Yep.
We can't have the crime.
Yep.
We can't have it all.
Yep.
Society has to function.
Yep.
So we tax. But it's not that the starting point is people don't deserve money. The government is the holy lord and God.
That's not my starting point, though.
The starting point is that people should be keeping as much money as they can. We need to take away a certain amount in order to help society function. But
is there a limit on that, though?
People deserve their money.
Is there a limit? Is there a limit on that?
On how much money people can earn? No, why would there be?
Well, that's the entire purpose of the phone-in. How much is too much?
Nothing. There is no limit. The sky is the limit. We live in a society where you can boom it up. And you know what? The poor people like me, we gain from this. We gain from the fact that there's rich companies in there. Is Amazon. Do you know how many people are working for Amazon and making money? What happens if there was no Amazon? What happens if Amazon said the tax in the UK is too high?
Do you know how many bottles of urine there are outside Amazon fulfillment centres?
I don't see what that has to do with it.
You're saying that Amazon is some kind of God's gift to all the people that work for it,
No,
and I'm countering and saying that actually I don't think it necessarily is.
Well, imagine there was... I just brought that as an example. I don't think it's the biggest gift. I actually hate the company. Everything I've bought on there...
This is what I'm talking about, Jordan. Every time I challenge you, you just go, well, that's not what I said. That's not what I meant. Come on.
No, I agree.
Come on.
One second, Oli, that's not fair. I brought Amazon as an example, and you start talking about how people don't like certain parts of Amazon.
I don't think you need me. I don't think you need me here, mate. I think you can just argue with yourself. I think we'll just turn my mic. We'll just turn my mic down, and you can have the whole thing.
That's not, Oli, that's not fair to say that. I'm actually having a great conversation with you.
I'm being a bit glib.
It's been a happier conversation than our last one. I think we could talk about that.
You keep talking about our last conversation. Does it occupy a lot of space in your head, or...?
Well, maybe the fact that my family is currently in America and not in England at the moment, yeah, I think it does occupy a lot of my mind. I was very grateful to you. I was so thankful. I thought a lot about you afterwards, thinking how you gave me a voice on the radio, and it was amazing of you, and I thought it was something that was so special about LBC, special about you specifically, because you really let me have a voice.
It's one of the things about this... Yeah, it's one of the things about this show that I love is getting everyone on to voice their opinions and have a little bit of argy-bargy as we're having now.
Yes, it is. I think it's amazing, and I think that you did a very special thing by allowing me on, because sometimes radio allows people who are in tremendous pain about their situation and the Jewish people's situation. You allowed me to have my voice.
Yeah.
And I felt like I did my small little part. And
absolutely.
I'm so grateful to you.
Jordan,
I'm grateful for you now today.
Yeah. So let's keep it on topic for the time being and not what we spoke about last time. So your voice and your suffering, your economic hardship actually that you've outlined to me and described and the fact that you don't have, a home of your own. Why is it that you don't want to necessarily change that, or that you're prepared to suffer in that way? Do you not sort of look at the way the economy is organised, where wealth resides, and the growing gap between the shrinking middle class and the uber wealthy, and say, let's do something about it. We can do better than this. We can organise a fairer society.
Yeah, I do actually, Oli, and I think that we need to make our country more palatable for more companies to invest here. I'm so frustrated by the UK, how we literally slog on by having 0.1. Rishi Sunak stands there, all proud that he fulfills his promise of growing the economy by what? 0.1%? Why isn't our economy growing 3, 4, 5% every single year? Why aren't more companies coming? Why are the companies... The UK, London could be... it's shrunk now. It's not even by New York. London should be the greatest city in the world. Why aren't all the companies coming to London, coming to Birmingham, coming to Manchester, coming to Leeds? Why are they running away? Why? Because there's too much taxes, too much red tape, too much bureaucracy. And if all those companies would be there, people would have easier time getting jobs. The economy would be so much bigger. The economy needs to grow. The economy can't shrink. It's shrunk enough. We've had too much cuts. The whole idea that the way to save the economy through taking away all the benefits, well, it might have immediately needed to have been done in 2010, 2014 because of the Labour government failures, but we need to grow the economy.
Jordan.
I need to be able to have a job.
Jordan, absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I agree with you. Let's we're going to have to draw a line under it because we're approaching the news. But can I just I don't want to change the sharing of the pie. I want to grow the pie. That's Liz Truss, isn't it? I think that it's close to a verbatim quote, isn't it, of Liz Truss?
I'll say this loud and clear on the radio. I support Liz Truss. Yes, I do.
Oh, okay.
I wish
well, there we go. That's probably all we needed, to be honest with you. Thank you, Jordan. Nice to have a frank exchange of views. I'm not so sure what to say to someone who sees that the pie is enormous, but you're only allowed the crumbs. Edward's in Brighton. Edward, good morning.
Good morning.
Where do you see Keir Starmer on this issue? Is Keir Starmer left-wing? Is he right-wing?
Well, it's not only Keir Starmer, it's politicians in general.
Okay.
We've actually, this country, I think, has passed a tipping point now, and these people will keep flooding in because politicians have been so weak and spineless that these people are taking advantage. And unless you get full cooperation from Europe, which you're not going to get, and unless the French get their finger out, which they won't, they're taking all our money but making sort of token gestures. These people, they can fly into this country, land here, thank you very much, I want asylum. Coming in back of trucks, they're coming in all manner of ways into this country, and it's unstoppable now.
Edward, when you say these people, who do you mean?
But migrants, all these people who are coming into this country seeking for asylum.
Okay,
That's
so
what I'm talking about.
There's a difference, isn't there? Because an asylum seeker is different from a regular migrant. An asylum seeker is someone who's fleeing war and famine and looking to claim safety. An economic migrant is, possibly a loaded...
Okay, then. A Border Force chap was on TV a couple of days ago who said they're actually stopping people now because they want to fly out to countries they've been fleeing from to go on holiday over the Christmas period.
That was...
How about that?
Edward,
wonderful stuff, eh?
You're referring to an LBC exclusive, actually. It was...
whatever it was.
Well, it's not whatever it was. It's an important distinction. That was our political editor in conversation with the head of the Border Force.
This country has got the sixth biggest economy in the world.
Yep.
And we're an absolute embarrassment. We're a laughing stock because the politicians, all they've indulged in is a dereliction of duty to the British people.
What part of having the sixth largest economy in the world makes us a laughing stock? Is that not something to be proud of? Am I missing something?
It's because we can't protect the people of this country and we can't protect our borders.
What do we need protection from?
It's absolutely ridiculous.
What do we need protecting from?
The last proper leader this country had was Margaret Thatcher.
Right.
That was a woman with a spine. And when the Argentines invaded Falklands, she sent the military down to sort it out. These people coming across the channel would be a walk in the park for somebody like Thatcher because she'd have them picked up and take them straight back. To hell with the French.
What would you like her to do? Or I suppose you spend quite a lot of time thinking about how she would deal with it.
No, it's too late. The moment has gone. What's happening in this country is sleepwalking into a Muslim country in about the next 80, 90 years. It's going to be... I'm telling you, did you not see the Channel 4 programme a couple of years ago?
I don't know which one. What are you talking about?
Well, it was on late at night. It was on Channel 4, and they were interviewing young Muslim men in the Midlands.
Right.
And they stood there and they said in front of the camera, this is going to be a Muslim country and the black flag will fly over Downing Street. And this other guy stepped forward and said, our sole aim is to outbreed the British and we will take this country.
Edward,
and that's what he said.
This is the great replacement theory. This is what you're bringing.
Well, no, it's
literally what it is.
It was on national TV.
No, I'm not talking about the TV programme. I mean, you can. I haven't seen it, so I can't comment on it.
No, I'm sorry.
I'm sure it's there. I'm sure it's real. I'm not a figment of your imagination.
Ollie,
yeah, go on.
I remember this country when it was a beautiful country.
Right.
And what these politicians have done...
And why is it not now? Why isn't it beautiful? No, answer the question. Why isn't it beautiful now?
They've turned this country into a toilet because they're so spineless and gutless.
Sorry, just to get this absolutely clear.
They're a bunch of weak-kneed Nellies, Ollie.
Edward, just to get this completely clear, Edward, your contention is that this country is no longer beautiful because there are now Muslims here. Is that what you're saying?
All the stabbings we've got in this country, all the drugs, the police have lost control of the streets.
These are all disparate issues, aren't they?
This country is a toilet.
These are all slightly disconnected things, aren't they? I mean,
no, not really.
They are.
There's plenty of people. It's an amalgam of what. It's an amalgam, Ollie, of what these. It's an amalgam of what the politicians who are so useless, weak-kneed, spineless Nellies have done to our country.
Right, and what do migrants have to do with those things?
Well, the migrants have got to do with it. What the hell are they coming here for? They're gravitating towards this country.
You said there's been a sort of crime of stabbing, a wave of stabbing.
Here.
So can you explain to me how the well documented and extensive examples of white working class violence in Glasgow, the gang wars that happened in Glasgow? Can you explain to me what they have to do with migration?
Well, Albanians, for a start off, they came here.
No, Edward. It's the knife crime, the serious youth violence of Glasgow does not have anything to do with Albanians.
I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about it. What I'm talking about is the way this country
we've got it. Okay, so if it's white people stabbing each other, we're fine. Okay, it's all above board. It's legit.
White people.
I did. I'm trying to talk to you about it. I'm trying to get you to engage with the fact that it's not just people of different ethnic backgrounds who stab each other.
I don't think you've got a handle on it. This country's going down the pan.
No,
and the politicians are standing by.
Tell me why. What is it? When you say this country's going down the pan, when you say this country is toilet, and then you similarly say to me that there are too many Muslims here, it sounds a great deal like racism.
Well, where are they coming from? They're coming from Syria, Libya, Iraq, Yemen, Sudan, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Afghanistan. Oh, are they not Muslim countries, or have I got it all wrong?
I don't understand what the problem is, Edward. Why are you scared of Muslims?
I'm glad I'm at the age I am now, because I won't be alive when it all happens. It's all going to kick off. It's going to be a Muslim country, I'm afraid.
I think we might be better off without you, Edward. To be quite honest with you, your politics sound rather nasty, rather unpleasant, and this is classic, isn't it? You try and tease out the details of what someone thinks, and it essentially boils down to there are too many Muslims. I mean, there has to be better. There has to be better detail. There has to be better. There has to be a depth. You know, there's a nuanced and difficult and interesting conversation to have about the economic needs of the country. But if you are just bringing there are too many Muslims, I'm sorry, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. It's embarrassing. In fact, Edward, I want to say thank you for your call. I'm not sure I mean it, though. Philip's in Whiteleaf. Philip, good morning. Is Jeremy Hunt right to abolish inheritance tax?
Absolutely. Why should anybody in the UK pay inheritance tax when King Charles inherited £650 million from his mother and didn't pay a penny? And as for inflation, all you need to do is look back to 2008, the near collapse of the banks and the introduction of quantitative easing by Gordon Brown and the like, printing money like it's going out of fashion. You know, increasing the money pie, magicking it up on a computer screen. It came from nowhere. It devalues the currency. It causes inflation. People need to wake up and see where it's come from, and they're still printing money like it's going out of fashion. I think
they have eased off on the quantitative easing, Philip. But let's just explore. Let's explore this a little bit. Then can we sort of? Is it to your mind, with your point about King Charles? Am I all right to read into that and understand that you're sort of suggesting the organisation of the economy favours one group of people perhaps a little bit too heavily?
Well, it certainly favoured King Charles, didn't it? To the tune of £650 million. And flying about in two Sikorsky helicopters. You know, one to go and one to come back. I mean, come on. It's not rocket science, is it? You know, why should people not keep the money that they've worked damn hard for, except for people like Prince Charles? Because I don't think he's done a stroke in his life, has he? Come on. You know, people that are going to end up paying this tax are everyday people who've worked hard, maybe acquired a home and paid for it. And now, when they die, the government's going to take 40% of everything over £300,000 or £500,000. It's not why it's double, treble, quadruple taxation.
Oh, so you weren't just being glib when you suggested that we shouldn't pay inheritance tax because King Charles isn't necessarily wasn't subject to it. You genuinely are opposed to it.
Absolutely. Well, look.
Okay, cool.
Not everybody inherits the money. Some people have worked damned hard for it.
Well, look, I think first of all, it's only about 4% of people that pay any inheritance tax in this country.
So is that an argument? Because only 4% pay it.
Well, the idea that it's sort of a pervasive thing that people aren't going to be able to leave their estates to their kids. My point is that it's essentially that a preserve or something that only really the more wealthy are subject to. Because if you're married, I think it's the combination of the two allowances basically means in terms of the estate that it's only over £1 million in the end ends up receiving inheritance tax.
What about people who've become property rich because the value of their house has increased? You know, I mean, they have no money.
But that's unearned, isn't it? I mean, that's unearned capital. You haven't done anything for... Maybe you've done some renovations, but, the fact that property prices have increased tenfold...
They had to pay for it in the first place.
They did, yeah.
They had to earn the money.
OK, so the value of it when you bought it, you can have that back, and all the extra value on it, we'll take that for the taxman.
Oh, dear.
What's so funny?
Why should the taxman... I mean, you just said £11 billion of cut to business tax cuts?
That's what came out in the last budget, yeah, in the autumn statement.
So where's the idea that everybody should pay equally?
Well, the argument I'm making is that we should try and equalise things via taxation in the system. I think only two things are certain in life: death and taxes. Yeah, and the two often come hand in hand, I think.
But would you not like to be able to leave your family, your children, your wife, your grandchildren, something behind?
I certainly would. Something. I think anything over £1 million, probably slightly excessive.
£1 million isn't a great deal of money.
Oh, come off it, Philip.
If you haven't got it.
Come off it. What are we doing here? £1 million bish isn't that much. Come on.
If you have £1 a lot, if you haven't got it.
Well, yeah, okay. Look, I take your point, but we seriously shouldn't be saying that £1 million isn't very much money. If you earn £80,000 a year, you're in the top 5% of earners in the country, and if you've got £1 million to play around with, that's a lot of money.
I understand that, but why should the state keep coming back and taking more and more and more? Because that's what's happening.
Mm.
And a simple thing, people forget when the council tax was introduced. They put VAT up by to 17.5% from 15% because they said they needed the 2.5% to cover the shortfall. People forget these things. How and the one party that's continually put up things like VAT is the Conservatives.
Mm. Yeah, the party traditionally of low tax.
But it's endless. VAT started off at 10%, then dropped down to 8%, and now it's 20%. 20%. I mean, it's ridiculous.
So Philip, are you sort of arguing for a broad sort of reduction in taxation? That's what you're suggesting. That's what you'd like to hear from Jeremy Hunt.
I think certain classes of it. I'm not saying people shouldn't pay based on their ability to pay, but every time you pick up your wage packet, it's been taxed. You go to the shop, it's taxed.
Yep.
I mean, where does it end? You die, it's taxed.
Yeah.
And, look at the governments, successive governments, not just the Conservatives, Labour as well. They've all squandered money. My local council, right? They're struggling. They couldn't afford to put a poo bin in the park for dog feces, right?
Philip, I think we might be getting slightly off topic there. Let's try and keep it on tax for the time being. Why do you care about being taxed if you're dead? Without being sort of too blunt about things.
well, this is the excuse. You won't miss it because you're dead.
Well, yeah.
But what about your family? What's
they get up to £1 million worth of it, so they do get some.
So some families get up to 650 million quid worth. I mean, come on, look, it's not right. It's not right.
I feel like we're drawing different lessons from this, because my lesson that I draw from this is that he should pay inheritance tax on that as well.
Well, if the world was just, he'd have paid his share, wouldn't he?
So why not make it just?
Because
we act like these things. We act like these things are out of our control, but they don't have to be.
Well, they are.
Why?
Who's going to tell Prince Charles he needs to cough up somewhere in the region of £300 million?
Here's an idea. We surround Buckingham Palace.
Yeah. Roll up the tanks, eh?
Yeah. No, exactly. No, seriously though, Philip, why not have, a more just taxation system? Why not try and redistribute the income to help those who aren't fortunate enough to have £1 million?
Because they won't do it. The establishment won't do it. It's as simple as that.
But we can't just accept and sit in a sort of pose of powerlessness. Can we? Surely we have to.
You're going to be powerless. You've got the richest man in Parliament is Prime Minister.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? He's not going to cut his nose off, spite his face, is he?
No, and I find that argument compelling. You know, I don't think that MPs, for example, are particularly motivated to deal with the rental crisis because a vast majority of MPs are landlords. Sorry, not a vast majority, a significant proportion of MPs are landlords. You know, it's this idea that people are going to vote against their own interests, either at a general election or within the actual structure of Parliament. I think is probably for the birds.
It is, and the thing you have to remember is those MPs, they're very well paid, and they get expenses on top of their pay, a lot of expenses.
What do you make of the argument that we should pay them more?
I think they get paid enough. The idea that you pay more and get the best falls down with people like Fred Goodwin, Fred the Shred.
Is Philip? I can't quite put a finger on your politics because on the one hand you're sort of saying these quite radical criticisms of the capitalist model, and then on others you're sort of anti sort of taxation and all the rest of it. And I'm trying to figure out how you sort of describe your politics.
I've always voted Labour, but recently I've changed some of my views. It's simple as that.
Okay.
There are a lot of people out there who should be working who are not working.
So who would you vote for now?
That's a very difficult question.
Okay, well, who do you like the look of?
Neither, because they'll all tell the lies they need to tell to get elected.
So are we talking?
That's all of them.
Are we talking about a left-wing alternative like the Greens or something centrist like the Lib Dems?
No, they're all as bad as each other.
Something from the right, Reform?
No. Well, you see, my politics is this. Some of the things I voted for Brexit.
Yep.
Simple as that. Because I believe we should be ruled by the people we put in power, not by an unelected bunch of people somewhere else.
Well,
so, yeah. If it's a mistake, they're our mistake, and we can do something about the next election. Simple as that. It's our country.
I don't want to retread sort of the arguments of 2016, but there is a parliament as part of the EU, isn't there? They are elected, weren't they?
They're a rubber stamp.
Okay.
The people that make the laws, the Commission, we have no say in.
And Rishi Sunak dropping Lord Cameron into his cabinet.
I mean, I just don't believe it. I just don't believe it.
Yeah.
That man has been brought back into government through the back door.
Well, it's the only way. It's the only way he'd be able to get in, wouldn't he? He wouldn't be able to do it by showing his face to the electorate, I don't think.
He should never have been brought back. Full stop.
Philip, thanks for your call. Nice to talk. I didn't know which direction that was going in. I didn't know which direction it was going in at all. I like that. Keeping me on my toes. Lenny is in Ashford. Lenny, good morning. Should we legally require drug testing facilities to be at or near these nightclubs?
Well, I think the money should be spent on drug prevention. The thing is, if you stop people taking drugs in the first place, it wouldn't be needed.
And if we look at the history of prohibition, so, you could talk about alcohol in 1920s America, or, more recently our sort of drug prohibition laws, and see that they haven't stopped people from taking drugs, that regardless of whether or not you make the sentences harsher, whether or not you change the public health messaging, there is always going to be this subsect of people that will take drugs regardless. Do we not have a responsibility to keep those people safe?
Well, I think that the priority is to reduce it. And that is that...
How would you reduce it, Lenny?
Well, basically, I would change the human rights law.
Right.
Because I'll tell you why I think the way I do. One of my family was a train driver, and he went in to drive his high-speed train under the influence of drugs. And he luckily, they tested him before he started work, and he was sacked on the spot. And there are so many people going to work in responsible jobs under the influence of drugs.
Okay, but how does that pertain to sort of keeping someone safe? You know, someone who's, I don't know, let's say taking a pill before they go to a nightclub or something like that. What's the connection between those two things?
Well, very simple. You've got to stop them taking drugs in the first place, and it means that the drug laws are too soft.
So how would you reduce the number of people taking drugs? Then you think punitive, harsher laws, more criminal justice?
Yes, well, what I personally would do, just for starters, I would, if anyone is caught with drugs, say drug driving, I would turn around, take their licence away, take their passport away, and then and so that and inform their employment, where they work, that they're employing a drug taker.
So, if someone is imprisoned of a drug offence, you think they should no longer be able to leave Britain? You think we should take their passport away?
Yes, because what it is...
How does that help?
Imagine if mum and dad are taking drugs and they can't go, and the family cannot go on holiday because their mum and dad are taking drugs, what a good... that would show the children... on the penalty of taking them.
But so I really don't understand this, Lenny. I've got to be honest with you. What's the connection between not being able to go on holiday and stopping taking drugs?
But it's another penalty for taking drugs, isn't it? If
okay.
People,
so it's punitive, basically.
We haven't got enough room in prisons. So what you've got to do is change the people's lives if they take drugs.
Okay, so looking at, let's say, the last, 50 years for which these things have been illegal and over which we've, particularly in the States, pursued more and more aggressive and punitive criminal justice policies, and I think you'd have to say they've been unsuccessful. Looking at that track record, what makes you think that the answer is, well, we simply haven't been punitive enough, we simply haven't been hardcore enough?
Well, I don't think they have been hard enough. I mean, you're saying they've been very, very strict and what have you, but I don't think they have been strong enough.
Okay, so if in the States, for example, you end up with, 3 strikes and you're out, right? You have 3 criminal offences and you'll be going to prison for a very, very long time. And that still hasn't stopped people using drugs. In fact, the prison population in the States is the highest it's ever been. What's your basis for saying? What's your basis for saying that it's going to stop people from taking drugs? There doesn't appear to be any evidence base for it.
That is punishing the person who's taking the drugs.
Yeah, and that might make us feel good, right? It might make us give us a sort of scratch the itch to make someone feel bad and to hurt them. But does it actually change? Does it change the situation? Does it stop them from taking drugs? I mean, there's plenty of drugs in prison, isn't there?
Well, that is the problem. That is the problem. I mean, we've got a country that's not fit for purpose. I mean, because, there is no service in this country that is fit for purpose because of the way the government have been running the country.
Lenny, when I tell you that a Home Office evaluation of its own sort of current policy framework published in July 2017, it said that the 1.6 billion British pounds a year that are spent on drug law enforcement have little impact on drug availability and found no clear links between the intensity of punitive enforcement and the levels of use. How do you answer that?
Well, I answer it with life experiences. I mean, there are a lot of government policies and quangos that put out all this information But it's, we all know later that it is not correct.
But this is the Home Office itself. It's not a Quango.
I mean, what part of politics can you trust?
Well, okay. Well, if the default position we're going to adopt is how can we trust anything, then we sort of get to a point of what's the point of having a conversation about absolutely anything, isn't it? If we just say how do I trust this, how do I trust that? It's the Home Office, This is the institution responsible for protecting our borders, maintaining the police. This is the government. We have to have some base level of trust. Considering as well they don't have an interest, do they, in putting this information out because it disproves their policy.
If you look at the police force, it's been proved every day we have a two-tiered police force that it is not it is not a level playing field. And if you've got a police force that is not a level playing field, then who can you trust? That is the world we're living in. That is the country this government have created.
Okay. Lenny in Ashford there. I've got to be honest, looking at the data, it certainly seems that the evidence suggests that a public health approach will do a much better job of addressing these concerns than just sort of endlessly pursuing punitive criminal justice measures, pouring money down and into that black hole. I'm not the only person that says it, by the way. Plenty of public health experts around the world think that that's the proper way of pursuing this. Sean is in Preston in Lancashire. Sean, good morning. What do you make of the conversation so far?
Hello, Ollie.
Morning.
I've been caught a bit by surprise, but anyway.
Okay. What would you like to say?
I think it all depends on the individual. I don't think you can categorise people.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
I think, look, I've known a few single mothers, and they've all given the absolute maximum. I think 95% of parents, 99% of parents actually, love their children and want the best for them.
Yep.
I think you're only talking 1% who might have some kind of problem that's so affecting their lives in such a deleterious way that it rubs off on the children. What do you say, Ollie? Come on.
Well, I don't... When we're talking about sort of, the phrase is crap, right? That's what this Tory MP has said. And I guess we're not necessarily talking about intent, right? We're not talking about whether the parents love their children or not. We're talking about whether I think from as you've said, the vast majority, that they've got all the best will in the world, and that regardless of that, there are other circumstances that can lead to negative consequences. It might be economic.
Like what?
Well, economic hardship would probably be a very pertinent example at the moment.
Yes, I would agree. I would agree that economic hardship could have a very bad effect on a child, yes.
So, we're talking, not just, let's say, whether or not they can actually put the heating on in the house, whether or not they can put food on the table, but, to use your example of a single mother, let's say working 2 or 3 jobs, doing absolutely everything they can to keep a roof over their kid's head, who they love dearly as a consequence of that, not at home as much as they would like to be. There's no ill intent there, is there? And as a result of which, I don't know if it's necessarily the mother's fault if the kids don't turn out as well as they could do, because she's had to do what she was doing in order to provide some kind of life.
Yes, I totally agree, and I do actually think that the prevailing government attitude over the last 15 years has had a negative effect on family life. So I'll go along with that.
What do you mean by that? By the government's decisions having a negative impact on family life? Tell me more about that.
I think that child poverty has increased, and that's a bad thing. I mean, clearly a bad thing.
Yep.
There should be more provision for people who are struggling. I think that goes without saying, doesn't it?
Yeah, I agree. And do you think there are other bits of, I don't know, actions the government have taken, policies they've adopted that have led to this?
Yes. For example, the Sure Start initiative that Blair brought in.
And the closure of that by the Conservatives, yeah.
Yes. But then I heard today that Tony Blair was thinking about sending migrants to the Moluccan Tire or the Falklands. So I don't think you can really trust these politicians one way or the other.
We were actually planning to talk about that, Sean, in this hour, but we've rolled over the conversation about parenting because there's so many people who want to contribute to it.
I don't blame you.
Do I understand? Am I to understand then that you sort of accept that the government does have a degree of responsibility rather than the individuals involved, as we've been talking about there? Because that's sort of the sort of not, well, it is. It's the opposite of where we sort of started this conversation, isn't it?
Ollie, I think the government should do more for people who are struggling.
Okay.
Right, and I would say that's absolute baseline humanity, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But on the other hand of the spectrum, right, if you can imagine, could you imagine the government organising where everybody had their Christmas dinner and what they were going to eat? Could you imagine that?
No.
Because it'd be a disaster, wouldn't it?
Okay. Where's this going, Sean?
Because what I'm trying to say is, if there's too much government intervention into people's lives, it ends in disaster. That's communism.
Right.
However, the government can do things like tax breaks, for example, on the poorest people in society, or increasing benefits, and that's a good thing. That's not intruding into their lives.
Do you not think, Sean, that the state should kind of provide the context, the situation in which families are able to flourish? That you're right, they shouldn't dictate how people should raise their children, but they should certainly enable them to raise them in an adequate manner, and that's kind of the mark of a healthy society.
Absolutely, I would totally agree with that, yeah. This is why I'm conflicted. See, I'm not going to vote this time. When the general election comes round, I want a 60% non-turnout.
Okay.
Because that will force the government. What I want, actually, is proportional representation.
Sure.
So if 60% of people don't turn out to vote at the next general election, that will send a message to the ruling classes, as I hate to call them, but that's what they are. That will send a message that we're fed up. We're fed up with the way politics is going.
Sean, can I ask you, have you read any Marx? Have you read Capital or anything like that?
I've read Karl Marx for Beginners.
Okay, maybe go to the original source text, because you're it sounds to me like the things you're advocating for, they do sound like left-wing positions, and maybe, you know, reading those sort of foundational.
Marxist, though.
No. I'm not saying.
Hang on, Ollie.
I'm not saying you are. I'm not saying you are at all, Sean. I'm just saying that maybe, you know, you decried communism earlier, and it might be instructive to visit the source text. But nonetheless, Sean, thank you for your call. Sarah is in Watford. Sarah, good morning. Where do you see Keir Starmer sitting on this? Is he left wing? Is he right wing?
I don't. Well, what I wanted to say really, Ollie, was Keir Starmer, I think, is not particularly inspiring as Labour leader. So he's not someone that inspires me. But the point I was trying to make was, it's nothing to do with people where they're from. It's just the numbers. This country is so overpopulated. It's so dense. We don't have the land to build hospitals, to build schools, to build prisons, to build houses that we need. 66 million people in a land the size of England, I'm not including the UK, I mean just England, is ludicrous. We just can't cope with. It's nothing to do with race or anything. It's just purely. And we need to employ, instead of keep bringing people in to do the jobs that are needed, we need to train our own people. There's the wages are so ridiculously low, people can't afford to work.
Sarah?
Yes.
What about building enough houses? What about putting money into the services? What about, funding a public sector, funding the public side of this country to the point where it's able to cope with the number of people that we need to have a functioning economy?
I think building houses is what I'm talking about. We don't have the land to build. All they're doing near where I live is they're pulling down shopping centres now, nightclubs. They're building large blocks of flats. The density of this country is ludicrous. We'll get to a situation, you can't keep building when the roads are all practically at a standstill. It's just ridiculous that we've got no hospitals being built. We're adding to the population by 7. I don't mean illegal. I don't mean the boat people or people. I'm talking about anyone from anywhere. We just are too overpopulated.
So most of the people who spend their time thinking about this, the Centre for Cities is probably the main one. They believe in a sort of gentle density in and around cities. So, for example, in a way that a city like Paris or Barcelona, they sort of have 5-6-story buildings from the centre out, whereas in London, as an example, but most British cities, we focus on. We have these huge high rises right in the centre, and then very flat. We go sprawling, huge suburbs. And that actually, if you had a higher density, but still gentle density in the sort of the urban centres, and then proliferated further out into the brownfield sites that surround cities, you would then be able to build plenty of houses, and more than enough houses. Actually, the Centre for Cities, who I'm thinking of, estimate that there's about a 4 million shortfall of house building over the last Parliament compared to our European neighbours, and that can be more than made up by building gently but denser within the urban centres, and then similarly expanding outwards.
Well, if you want to take France as an example, France has 2.5 times the land of England. It's 2.5 times the size. And if you say, to make it as dense as we are at this moment in time, if you say 2.5 times our population in England, which is 66 billion, 2.5 times 66, I can't work it out exactly, it's a good 150.
I mean, look, we are a quite densely populated place, right? But it's not.
They're more than dense.
But it's not.
You could put 100 million people in France tomorrow, and not about 80 million in France tomorrow, they would still have more land.
I think you would notice it, though, wouldn't you? Because you'd be talking about essentially doubling the population of France. I think they would notice it.
I'm just saying, you can't do it. I'm purely trying to, as an equation, I'm trying to talk to you about the land per head of population.
So what is it exactly that you're saying we don't have enough of? Is it literal land? It's space, literal space.
Build.
Okay.
The land to build, and to
when I tell you then, Sarah, that nearly half of the land in this country, the people who own it, can trace their ownership of it via their lineage back to the Norman conquest. When I tell you that less than 2% of the actual physical land itself is built on, and that the vast majority of land in this country, well over half, is still owned by a combination of the Crown, the Church, and then landowner estates, essentially the aristocracy, and that large swathes of it are basically open parkland. What do you make of that? You'd be happy for us to sort of seize that land from the king and build houses on it?
I still can't get away from the ratio of land per population. I don't accept that that's all fine. I just think that's
the fact. That's the fact of the matter, though, Sarah, isn't it?
No, the fact of the matter.
It is the fact of the matter.
The fact of the matter is the population in relation to size of country. There is no. I mean, we've got children that are having their sports fields built on. We've got.
That's a good one, actually. Did you know, Sarah, that within the M25, all of the acreage of the golf courses within the M25, the amount of land is comparable to a borough the size of Brent?
Well, the point is, I don't particularly like the idea of golf courses, but the thing is, it's still open land.
Yeah,
you can still look and not see huge buildings.
But we could and should.
A human being needs to see grass. They need to see.
Yep, they do.
They need to. If you overpopulate even passive animals that are put too close together, together, become aggressive.
Yeah.
There's so much aggressiveness. Everywhere you go, it's aggressive. Parking.
So how about we flatten out those golf courses then, and we spread out the population so that we can live in less dense
Well, you're
means.
going to be building houses and flats and things. You're not going to look at open land. There's so much wrong with this country. This government is the worst government in my lifetime, and I'm in my 70s. And I'm very frightened for this country. We don't just need service industry and for people to buy up houses to rent out, and so they can make plenty of money out of the rents. What we need is manufacturing people. We want people to be trained in engineering, in plumbing, all those sorts of things, and be well paid. We've got so much wrong with this country. We've got children with mental illness that will be an explosion soon. We have a Chancellor of the Exchequer that was, when he was in the Health Secretary, wrote a book about privatisation of the health service. He also, we need so many problems with rentals now. We've got a Chancellor of the Exchequer who has bought 7 flats in Southampton, luxury flats to rent out.
This is the thing, though, I find with much of this conversation is that the diagnosis is often very similar across, my politics and others. That the diagnosis is often very, very similar of the problems in our society. It's just that I don't really buy the argument that the country's overpopulated or that there's not enough land because, well, if you do want to take that argument, then I know where we can get it. We can get it off the Church of England, the King of England, and the descendants of the Norman barons. They're the ones who've got it all. But I suspect that's not really what people mean when they say the country is overpopulated. Anyway, Catherine's in Ealing. Catherine, good morning. What would you like to see included in the budget?
Good morning. Well, it would benefit me greatly to abolish inheritance tax.
Okay.
I'm by no means wealthy. I'm a pensioner, but I have 4 generations living with me in my house. We've just got a new baby.
Oh, congratulations.
It's lovely. It's lovely. We all live in a house in London, which, because of house prices, is above the inheritance tax threshold, although our income is not. And my family work in the NHS. They haven't got enough money to buy their own house. So
Catherine, yeah, totally. I appreciate that. It's very difficult to buy a house in London, certainly, and particularly if someone works in the NHS as a nurse or a carer or something similar. It's very, very hard on that salary. Absolutely, I agree. I want to gently.
It's impossible.
I want to gently interrogate, and I mean this sort of sincerely and with kindness. The idea, you said from the outset, I'm not wealthy. You own a house in London, and by the standards of anyone else in the country, that house surely puts you in a bracket of people who actually are, yes, quite wealthy. I mean, do you mind me asking you how much your house is worth? It's just above the inheritance tax threshold. It's gone up about 1.2 million. Okay. So I think by most people's definition, that constitutes being wealthy.
Well, this is, to be honest with you, Ollie, this is what I very much object to.
Okay.
The fact that property has become wealth.
Yeah.
Property hasn't become somewhere where you live.
Yes, it's become an asset, yeah.
Home. It's just become an asset, and now people are coming from abroad, they're buying off plan, lots of flats.
Mm-hmm.
Just to rent out and get money. And I just, for me, my house is my home. I've lived here for 40 years. My husband paid for it out of his tax income.
Mm-hmm.
It is the home of my children, my grandchildren, and my great-grandchildren. And the actual value of it to us is it's our home. It's where we live.
Absolutely.
We live together.
It's far higher than that. I assume, Catherine, if you've been there for a while, the sort of the price you paid for it isn't necessarily what it's worth now. What you paid for it is probably quite dramatically less than that £1.2 million.
It is, and also
when did you move in? By the way, when did you move in?
Yeah, I was just going to say that we moved in 1990, and my husband salary could buy this house. He was
and what was it worth then? Just for those sort of doing the arithmetic, what was it worth at the time when you moved there?
when we moved in, well, first of all, we came to London in 1980. We bought a house in Hull, which doubled in value in a year. We used that as a deposit. We bought a house in this area for about 24,000. That went up to 80,000. And then in about 10 years, and then in 1990, we bought this house, which was about 150,000.
Okay.
And so it has gone up exponentially since then. So, and we will be able to buy it.
Nearly by a factor of 10 that the property's increased in value for 150 up to 1.2 million. Now, again, Catherine, you are not responsible for the housing crisis, right? I'm not apportioning blame to you for the fact that how hot the housing market is, how valuable that house has become. But would you not accept that all of that sort of value, that increase in value of that house as an asset, yes, you've paid off the mortgage, but you haven't done anything to earn the remaining £1 million that's come on top, have you?
No, but the thing is, Ollie, this is my whole point. That this is our home.
Yep.
The value is irrelevant to us. It's where we live.
Yeah.
It's our home. And, the fact it's got this value stuck on it,
until it gets sold.
It's our home, you see, because we wouldn't be able to move out of London because my children work and grandchildren work in London, in London hospitals. And so we live in London. And so
Catherine, would it not be the case, you and your partner bought that house, so, the limit of £1 million, the house gets sold, let's say, the 200 grand over the top of that gets taxed, there's still that £1 million floating around for the kids afterwards, isn't there?
Yeah, but they would have lost their home and they wouldn't be able to, all of them as individuals wouldn't be able to buy their individual home out of the proceeds in London. I mean, this is the whole point. It's the London property prices which are particularly hard, for people who work in the NHS.
For me, it feels like this is the sort of the direction of your ire should be sent in the direction of the causes of the housing market, of the housing crisis. Which are many, by the way. It's not as simple as one person's responsible for it. But for example, Margaret Thatcher's decision to sell off the council housing stock, our inability to build houses in the time since, and by governments of multiple shades, by the way. I'm not saying it's just a Conservative thing. There are multiple causes, but the fact is there is a housing crisis, and it feels like the fact your children can't afford to get on the housing ladder isn't necessarily, well, it's certainly not your fault. It's a lot of people's fault, but I don't know if it directly has a great deal to do with inheritance tax. And actually, in theory, the idea that each of your children could have a portion of £1 million to help them get on the housing ladder feels like they've got a bit of a leg up that a lot of other people don't.
Yeah, but the thing is, Ollie, you're missing the point totally again.
Okay.
This is our home, and we live together as a family. We are 4 generations under one roof.
Yeah.
We celebrated Christmas together. We're very fortunate. And the fact that we're all going to have to be scattered, is very, very sad because, I come from a farming background and, in the past, people lived in family units.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually
multi-generational homes. But Catherine, I don't understand the only way in which sort of you'd be able to keep the house in the family is essentially either to pay the tax bill, or there's some kind of law passed that means that the house never gets sold, that it's allowed to stay in the family. And at that point you'd be entrenching wealth inequality to the extent that basically anyone who had a house in London, they were made for the rest of their lives and all of their children's lives and all their grandchildren's lives.
Well, I think everybody has a right to their home, and I don't think they should be driven because of and I think that to confuse home and money and your home and just the price of your house, I think it's very corrosive, and I think that it's wrong to look at everything totally in terms of money, which tends to be what's happening at the moment. And I also think that it's wrong not to have increased the inheritance tax threshold, because that is really what has caught us up in it. because we're not wealthy by any means, apart from our property. And they haven't increased the inheritance tax threshold.
Catherine, I do have to sort of contest that, that the average inheritance in the UK is about £11,000. Now, I don't know how many children you have, but I imagine it's less than 10. And so each of your children is going to inherit, more than the average. You are wealthy.
We are wealthy as we are at the moment, but because we live together and we pool our resources, that is why, separately, it just would not work, financially for them, because my daughter's a single parent, they haven't got a double income, and the system, as we've got at the moment, I think we're very fortunate because we all get on. And we pool our resources. We all live together. It's great. I'm a great grandma. I've got 2 little great grandchildren. I think it's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it is wonderful. It sounds fantastic. Sounds like a really nice place to live.
Yeah, but what I'm worried about is when I die, it's all going to absolutely.
Could you? Is there not some kind of mechanism by which you could? You can get out of this, can't you? I think there must be some kind of way you can dance around it. It works for the wealthy, doesn't it? You sort of gift it to your kids, no?
Yes, you can make it over and live for 7 years, but then you have to pay an economic rent.
Yeah.
So I suppose if I paid my entire civil service pension as rent, that might do it. That is a possibility.
Okay. It's interesting, Catherine. It sounds like you've got to choose something that you don't necessarily want to, but the idea that you're not well off by the standards of anyone else in this country, it's not the case. I want to know what's going on here for so many of us, right? Because there's a really instructive moment on Question Time a couple of years ago where a bloke said, I'm not that well off, I'm not rich, and it transpired that he made something like 100 grand a year. And it's like, well, no, actually, pal, you are. By anyone's standards, you are. You're in sort of the top 5% or whatever it is. And why is it that, I know, Catherine, you don't want to sell the house. I know you don't want to do that. It feels like maybe that's the situation you've weighed it up and that's where you're going to end up. But at the end of the day, it's still an asset that has appreciated to more than £1 million in value, and that makes you a millionaire. Are we really in a situation where we say people who are millionaires are not wealthy in Britain? I just can't reconcile those two things. Amit's in Coventry. Amit, what do you make of the conversation so far this morning?
Morning, Ollie.
Morning.
I think the argument is the wrong argument. I think in the end, there's always going to be someone who could blame cosmic forces, the ice age, planetary alignments, and lots of other factors that could possibly cause climate shift to an ice age. I think the real argument is that man should be living in harmony with its environment, because this then entails plastic pollution, sewage in water, excessive use of things, food wastage, not having enough trees. It broadens the argument, and then it entails as well thinking actually that fossil fuels are probably not the greatest way to create energy. It then introduces the argument of nuclear waste material and how that's processed, and whether end-to-end plastic pollution should be neutralised and costed at source. Whether end-to-end pollution, Gordon Brown was on the right path slightly when he started talking about a carbon dioxide market.
Amit, I think you might be talking about overhauling our entire socio-political economic system.
Yes, I am, but in the end, it's an evolution of change that's occurring. How we thought about things 100 years ago to how we think about things now has changed, and it will change over a period of time if there's a certain sort of mind shift in the consciousness of many, many people about how to exercise life. You can't just... because there's always going to be someone, you had that caller on before, it's down to the planets, it's down to the solar flares. You're not going to be able to prove it. it's like the God argument. You know, does God exist?
The thing is, though, the problem with this for me, though, is that you can prove it. You know, and that's the frustrating thing, I think, for a lot of this. Well, yeah, absolutely. You know, it goes like this. You know, the sun can and does influence Earth's climate, right? But it's not responsible for the trend of warming that's happening over recent decades. You know, we know that subtle changes in the orbit around the sun are responsible for kind of the comings and goings of the ice ages, but the warming in recent decades is too fast to be connected to orbit, and it's also too large, too significant to be the result of solar flares. And one of the ways that we know that is that since 1978, scientists have been tracking this using sensors on satellites, and they tell us that there's been no upward trend in the amount of solar energy reaching our planet. So, you know, it's very...
What caused the ice age? What caused the ice age?
Like I just said, it's a change in Earth's orbit.
So there wasn't enough carbon dioxide at that point in time produced by man to create an ice age, right?
Well, I guess so.
Yeah, you can't argue that man was producing enough carbon dioxide at that point in time to produce an ice age. So everyone's going to go, well, it was down to different factors. If you want to believe the scientific evidence, you can. Even if it gets to 50-80%.
You probably should. you probably should believe the science.
Repeatedly. This idea that science is right all the time is almost like a religious fundamentalism. We can go through scientific theory for the last 500 years.
No, absolutely. Absolutely, Amit. Absolutely. Science is a constant process of revision. It's not about, you know, this we hold to be true. Things, absolutely. That's the purpose of good science, right? But the idea is that until further evidence comes along to force you to change your opinion, you adhere to scientific consensus and orthodoxy before that, right? Like you don't just get to wait.
But then you are arguing that some of the scientific evidence is currently incorrect. If we look at history,
okay,
some of it's wrong.
So what?
Right?
So what do you think is? What part of it do you think is wrong then?
I can't prove it either way. I believe that man probably has an influence on climate change. I accept that carbon dioxide is produced. I don't know what factors led to, you know, whether it's going to cause a 10-degree rise or a 1-degree rise. I haven't read the evidence enough.
That's probably the key phrase there, isn't it? Leonard is in Kensington. Leonard, good morning. Which vision do you think is closer to reality, 1984 or Brave New World?
Well, I'm going to say something, actually. I wish the vision that I had many years ago, and I think I was under the influence of some kind of pharmaceutical. I think we all know what that was. And I remember in that time that there was quite a lot of effort to, sort of push back against the real sort of conservative-minded people to stop people from what I believe used ecstasy to some degree that absolutely did affect the way the mind worked, and it put people in a state of a kind of bliss that you just wanted to stay in forever. And I think that really wasn't going down too well with the system at the time, which at that time was starting to become very much more totalitarian as well, and it has, as far as I'm concerned, become very much more totalitarian. But I think it'll be a phase that will have to, people will have to make a stance against it. And
so, Leonard, when you look at the modern world, what aspects of it do you see as fitting into kind of the defining characteristics of Orwell's envisioned society?
The pretty obvious ones, really, such as facial recognition and being sort of spied on by CCTVs and. I've not really read much of his stuff. I have seen a few movies based on his hypotheses, but the thing is, I think it is up to individual people with a strong mind to try and encourage others, not persuade others, to not with ill intent, but to think for themselves, because everybody when they think for themselves will realise that they don't think that much different to each other, and that they certainly don't think in the way of what could only be considered quite malevolent forces at work. That is
think is the operative word there, isn't it?
Yeah,
Leonard, because obviously
they're absolutely trying to. I think personally, and I don't fear being called a. I mean, some people might refer to it as conspiracy theory, or we don't want to know all about this. But what they rely on to a great deal is to distract people.
When you say they, Leonard, who do you mean?
Well, there's a deeper there's a darker frequency, which I'm afraid to say, whether we like it or not. I've researched some of the stuff that Tesla is well known for discovering and writing about, and we do actually, everything is at the quantum level about frequencies and vibrations and light. And whether we like it or not, that is the way the quantum aspect of our existence, the very basis of it, works. And there can be dark and high frequencies and low frequencies.
Leonard, could I try and steer us back towards Brave New World or 1984, perhaps?
Well, there will never be a Brave New World, I don't think.
Why?
All the time because of the military-industrial complex, for a start.
Okay.
That's a very.
So let's plumb that line of inquiry then. Do you think that our direction of travel as a society is getting closer to that Orwellian vision, that totalitarian state? How do you think we're heading? Is it an upward struggle, or is this kind of there? Okay, go on.
Yeah, we're already there. We're absolutely, with this digital banking stuff and spying on people. I mean, there are multiple things that I can tell you that actually do, demonstrate that at the very least that's what is happening, I personally think we're definitely. I think, look, they talk about. AI, for instance, they talk about AI. There's all this fear mongering about AI. I don't think personally AI is a threat to humanity. I personally think that humanity is the threat to humanity. It's AI that is created by humanity. I did actually hear something at the beginning of this year, and I'm not sure if it's true, but I heard they created a military program somewhere in Japan, I think it was. It did sound a bit far-fetched, and I could never get to the bottom of it. But
no place to bring that than a national radio station, Leonard.
Well, they created a technology, and apparently these AI machines or robots or whatever you want to refer to them, they did some pretty bad things to about 30 people.
Right. Okay. And what's the evidence of this?
We either go in one really good direction, and human beings make a paradigm shift, and they do something really positive and constructive, and that will put us into a category of a category 1 civilization, and then 2 and 3 and 4 or whatever. There's a famous Japanese professor, actually.
Well, that's kind of the society that's envisioned and outlined by Huxley, isn't it? The sort of the society of with a caste system of alphas and betas, gammas, deltas, and epsilons, that people are ranked according to sort of their value to society. That mirrors Huxley's vision, does it not?
What was Huxley's idea of values to society?
Well, that essentially your purpose was to consume.
Well, I disagree with that. I don't think it is our purpose to consume. I think it's our purpose to consume and be responsible with consuming, and to. I think
what you're confusing perhaps is his idea of what the sort of the socioeconomic system was designed for. Like, he's not saying that the sort of the innate nature of human beings is to consume. They artificially created a society in which people were predisposed to consume. That's sort of in
an obsolescent sense.
What do you mean by that?
obsolescence sense, like consumption obsolescence, stuff that's made to last. I mean, consume. I don't know what you mean by consuming other than consumption, which is what we do anyway.
Yeah,
I mean, we've done nothing but consume.
Yeah, the idea is kind of that you would program, sort of the lower castes in society. This is what happens in the book. To sort of you can instill characteristics in people. So, for example, I don't know, via genetic engineering, you would program a love of sort of outdoor pursuits, so that caste of people is constantly consuming transport, so that they're leaving the cities, the urban centres in which they're based, to go out and then play, I don't know, go hiking or anything like that. So that's part of it, certainly. And then you have the joint purpose of that you then end up with a manufacturing base where you can sort of create all these complicated outdoor games via which people require these the equipment for the outdoor sports. That's part of it. Leonard in Kensington there. Paul's in Cornwall. Paul, I'm not sure how to pronounce the place you're from. Is it Marazion?
Marazion.
Marazion. Paul, Merry Christmas to you. Good morning. What would you like to say?
You seem to have a downer on golf courses. Would you build on all those? And then once you've built on those, would you go for the cricket pitches and the football pitches? And you say that the church and the crown owns all this land. Do you think that all this land is left redundant and just wild?
Okay, so Paul,
lots of the Crown's land is leased out on farms. I don't particularly like the fact that they own it, but
Paul,
it's not redundant and waiting to be built on.
Can I come in? So the problem with the golf courses is that it's a minority interest. We're talking less than 2% of the population play golf. So the amount of space it takes up, that's the argument, right? If you're going to talk about land use, is it an effective use of land for us to have all these golf courses when so few people play on it, and there's a need for housing? That's the argument there. When you get to football, and you get to a football pitch, which is a mass interest and a mass pursuit by lots of the people, the utilitarian equation of the sort of the good provided by it in return, that's where the conversation gets to. But that's where I was talking about with golf. That was the illustrative point.
You would ban golf, would you? You'd ban minority interests.
I'm not saying I would ban minority interests. I'm saying if you want to make an argument that we're overpopulated, we don't have enough land, then let's start interrogating what the land in the country is actually used for.
So why don't Labour have a policy then? Our policy will be that we will confiscate golf courses and build on them.
I'd probably vote for it, to be honest with
you. Would you?
I would, yeah.
I think that takes you a long way down to a sort of state that I don't want to live in.
Okay, why?
Because it's authoritarian. You're saying we don't approve of golf.
Do you think modern Britain is authoritarian at all? You don't think the country we live in right now, that's passed excessive amounts of legislation to curb your right to protest, for example, that's not authoritarian?
I think it's going in a direction I don't like very much, but it's another thing once you start stating this, we approve of this activity, but we disapprove of that. Tennis courts, I'd get rid of them. We could build a lot of houses. Look at Wimbledon, great big area in central London. We could build lots of houses on that. How many people play tennis?
Yeah, a fair few, but the tennis court doesn't require as much space, does it, as a golf course?
Have you looked at Wimbledon? It's a huge place. You could build lots of apartments on Wimbledon.
Paul, I think you might be sort of deliberately missing the point of what the example.
No, I'm not.
It was just an analogous example. It wasn't a.
You're
theory.
saying that, and look at the Crown lands.
Yeah.
And
what about
here
it?
in Cornwall, we have the Duchy of Cornwall.
You do?
They own loads of farms that are all leased out and rented out to people and run. That land isn't all sat fallow waiting to be built on.
And presumably you're overjoyed at the fact that we take a huge amount of tax revenue from those estates. Oh, wait. We don't do it.
We take a huge amount of tax revenue from what?
The King's estate isn't taxed, is it?
I believe it is.
No, it's not.
I did find about saying about them.
It's not. Okay, it's not. Thanks, Paul, for your insights. Great to have you on. Nice to have someone fight the corner of the humble golfer. OK, let's go to Vincent in Glasgow. Vincent, good morning. Where do you see Keir Starmer sitting on this issue? Is he left-wing? Is he right-wing?
Well, I think neither. I think Keir Starmer's just the object of a political advertisement campaign. He's just a package of slogans with a veneer of respectability. But
you don't think he believes anything?
No, he's just the best-looking candidate that's put up for the people to, look at and vote for. And I don't think he's got any substance at all. If he had substance, he wouldn't be the leader. But could I come to the issue of migration and housing, please?
Sure.
The issue I have with illegal immigration and mass migration is that the vast majority of migrants are put in working-class areas or schemes. And this, I think, is like so many northern constituencies voted Conservative in 2019. There's a limited amount of resources. It's just a fact. Housing, for example.
It's a new Labour policy, I think, dispersal that the new Labour government introduced. The idea that essentially you would ship asylum seekers around the country, most specifically probably to poorer areas, and particularly maybe let's say an area like the North East, specifically the poorest areas of the North East.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the fact of the matter is, the more migrants, the more demand will be, and I don't have a problem.
You're still there, Vincent?
Yeah.
Sorry, I lost you there, mate. Can you just make sure you keep the phone close to you? Can I just so let's follow your argument through. Basically, more people, we need more houses, right? That's the equation.
Sorry, you are breaking up there.
Vincent, you're essentially saying more people, therefore we need more houses, right? That's the equation.
I mean, but I know that the issue is more nuanced. I mean, you have global governance, artificial intelligence, international asset banking groups like BlackRock, Vanguard, buying up estates and properties all around the planet. But the reality for someone like myself, who was once homeless for a year and who presently lives in a working class area, we don't see that. What we see is the reality that's in front of our eyes. And that reality is that there is a limited housing stock, for example. And we see people from other countries in vast numbers getting that housing stock. And persons like myself had to wait months for somewhere to live. It doesn't seem fair.
So why not build more houses?
Well, that's a good idea, but that's no reason to flood the system with more migrants when we don't already have present stock.
I think it's
build the stock up and then accept more on, but right now the stock isn't there.
And so what do you say to the guy who, I don't know, owns a pub and needs a kitchen porter? What do you say to the care home that's operating on 50% staff? You've got to wait until we've built more houses. You got to keep limping on.
No, if there are people, I mean, I've got friends who are Portuguese and French. My Portuguese friend works with the elderly in a care home. And my French friend, she works with people who have dementia. They're carers.
Yep.
I've got no problem with these people coming in, contributing. However, I know so many people in my area who they are on benefits and they just sit doing their own thing. And look, I've got nothing wrong with people from other countries. I don't care if they're working or on benefits. My problem is there is a limited amount of housing.
Asylum seekers aren't able to claim benefits.
Well, they aren't asylum seekers then. Then they are migrants. They are economic migrants then who've settled in the country. I don't know their status. All I know is that they don't work, they don't integrate with the rest of the community, and there is an element of crime there. Like there's an element of crime in every single social group.
It's sort of Schrodinger's immigrant, isn't it? It's the individual who's simultaneously claiming benefits but also taking jobs, taking housing. You can't just keep blaming these people for all of society's ills. They're often just as vulnerable as everyone else is, mate. Vincent in Glasgow, thank you for your call. Liam is in Lewisham. Liam, good morning. What's your view on ULEZ?
Ollie, it's just another tax, Ollie. Come on, look, right, you're saying about getting better. it discriminates against the poorer people that can't afford to change their cars or whatever, And not only that, right? If the government was that concerned about ULEZ, right? Why would instead of charging people to drive old cars, just ban the old cars and finish with it, right? And then,
I think that would be even worse, wouldn't it, Liam? If we were to just ban them.
Hold on, let me explain. But then to pay £12.50 a day is over $4,000 a year.
Yeah.
Right. If you've got to pay $12.50, I don't know what comes to about $4,000 something over a year. But but it's another tax on the poor, people who can't afford to change it. And all of a sudden they just do this. All of a sudden, Sadiq Khan thinks, I mean, how much is this costing? The cameras and all that. How much is all that costing? Why don't they use that for electric buses or, put more electric buses on the road or whatever? But
Liam, I think as well, I think there's quite a lot of evidence to indicate that the air pollution also most dramatically affects people in more socially and economically deprived areas of London. It's not just about the economic side of the sort of the scrappage of the cars. And by the way, there is a scrappage scheme. They have they're offering £2,000 to replace these vehicles. But also crucially, Liam, half of people in London don't own a car, and the ownership of cars very heavily skews towards the middle class and the upper class. It's actually the poorest people in London don't own cars.
No, but Ollie, it's just another tax, whichever way you want to look at it, and then, Sadiq's deciding to put up the council tax, and then, smoking, right? This is a good one, smoking. I'm a smoker. I go and buy cigarettes, whatever. The amount of tax I pay on the cigarettes, most of it's all tax anyway.
Yeah, it is. But that's deliberate, Liam. It's one of the best examples. It's one of the best examples of a public health policy example. I think is the taxation on cigarettes because it stops people from smoking. It's one of the most effective bits of policy making I think in recent history.
Ollie, I smoked, then I stopped smoking, and then I started smoking again. Ollie, if the government was that concerned about my health and my well-being, although I pay already tax, and now I pay even more tax when I buy cigarettes, I'm taxed on it, and, and then they say, well, you end up in hospital or whatever, but the government's been taking all the money and all the taxes from the cigarettes. If they were that concerned about my health, they would ban cigarettes from shops altogether. They would just.
Well, I think they are quite concerned about your health because they plough a great deal of that tax revenue into providing universal health care for you and everyone else in the country.
Really, listen, the only people, they don't care because when the government makes policies and decisions on my life, it does not affect them. They have enough money to go private. They have enough money to fly out of the country when it's cold. So, they've got enough money to put their heating on. They've got enough money to buy bottles and bottles of wine and champagne. And, some of these people, they've bought a bottle of wine tonight that costs £500, not even blink an eyelid and whatever, So
Liam, is it better to ban things in the way that you're arguing? You're suggesting that, rather than taxing and dissuading people, or at least extracting a tithe for people that do smoke, that's unacceptable. It's better to ban it. That for me feels like a sort of breach of people's freedom to be able to sort of do with their bodies what they choose. Similarly, is it better to just ban these cars? Is it not better to sort of provide a scrappage scheme, a phased introduction, to give people a chance to make adjustments? Surely the banning and the quite extreme responses you're advocating for, surely that's worse than the policies we've got at the moment.
Hold on, Ollie. No, what I'm trying to say to you, Ollie, is, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, because a lot of people won't get the value. They won't give you the value of your vehicle for when you scrap it, So, it's the millions of pounds being spent on more cameras, whatever. There's another tax for people of London in austerity.
I think the 28,000 people that die every year in the UK in excess deaths from air pollution are probably damned if they do and damned if they don't you?
So do you think that they died from air pollution just because they were in London all this time?
It's not me.
In the UK all this time.
It's not me that thinks that. That's the London Authority that makes those estimates, and then Public Health England. So it's not just something I've dreamt up, Liam.
No, look, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. What I'm saying is, like with the ULEZ, it's a tax, right?
Yeah, it is a tax. Yeah,
but then you can still drive your car around, but you can still drive around and pollute the air. But for that, we'll charge you £12.50 because your car's not ULEZ compliant.
Yep.
What madness is that? That's like saying,
why is it mad?
You know what? Because what you're saying, right, is give us £12.50. You can still drive your car around creating pollution, you know, every day, but just pay us £12.50. I mean, how's that going to not stop killing people? That's like 100,000 cars of people that are still driving cars. So I don't see...
Because it incentivises people to either do something about it and change their vehicle, but it also provides enough flexibility that they can still use it if they absolutely have to. It's a sort of... It's a middle ground, isn't it? And you're right, you know, that £12.50 directly is not going to itself save anyone's life. It's about the mass effect of it when drawn out across, you know, the entire population of London.
Okay, so how many lives have been saved, right, during this ULEZ thing? Tell me how many lives they're saying has been saved during this ULEZ.
Well, obviously you can't directly draw a comparison between the two, can you? When I tell you that the amount of pollution that's been averted is comparable to the amount that's produced by London's airports, so a dramatic amount, and then I tell you that air pollution causes very serious lung disease and all the other issues that I mentioned, coronary heart disease, stroke, all cause mortality. It is, you can draw the conclusion, can't you, from those two facts?
But it just hits the poor people, because the poor people are the ones, or the working class that are hard working, trying to do jobs. Right, you're trying to go to one job to do, maybe fix a boiler or plumbing or carpenters or self-employed people, right? And, you know, it's the working class that are getting hammered with it, because we can't afford to change our cars and buy a £20,000, £30,000 vehicle that's electric and whatever, drive around, yeah? And we're paying taxes, you know, and we're paying everything. And then, you know, like you said, like these middle-class people, they can go and buy a new electric car, whatever, and they don't pay the ULEZ and drive around, happy days.
Liam, I can understand. I think that economic argument is a valid one. You know, if the position is ULEZ as a policy is an effective one, an important one, and a much needed one. If in response you say, however, the current economic context is one that is so acute that maybe we should consider delaying it for a year, then that's certainly a conversation we can have. I'd suggest it's one I disagree with you on.
Holiday, Ollie.
It's one I disagree with you
all
on.
The people flying out of Heathrow on holidays. They don't, you know, talk about all the pollution.
Is that
I mean?
the pollution from Heathrow? Does that bother you?
They're not just. What I'm saying is, you know, it makes me, you know, it does makes my blood boil a bit, because
I'm getting the impression. I'm getting that impression.
Right, right, now listen to me, right? Most people who can afford the holidays, right? Because I can't. I'm working, and even as a plumber, I make enough money. But what I'm saying, the amount of tax I have to pay, right, is horrendous. You know, because I'm a higher earner. You know, declare my taxes, self-employed. So let me tell you,
Liam, you mentioned the emissions.
On their holidays,
Liam, you mentioned the emissions. Yeah, for people flying off on their holidays, right, from Heathrow.
Yeah,
that's a problem.
Like,
so when I tell you that ULEZ averts as much pollution as not just Heathrow, but Gatwick, but Luton, but City, all of those airports combined, surely you accept, okay, well, ULEZ is a good thing then, if you're so bothered by people flying off on holiday.
No, what I'm saying is, people that can afford to fly off on holidays, and people that can take these holidays, you know, and they maybe fly 2 or 3 times a year on going on holidays and travelling. Tell me, when I walk into a shop, Ollie, right, and I'm paying for a plastic bag, oh, you shouldn't buy that plastic bag because, you know, it's not good for the environment.
So,
and I say, excuse me, have you got a car? They go, yeah. Probably got a 4x4, right? And you go on holiday.
Yeah, Liam, but this argument is specious. This idea that essentially because we all live in society, therefore we can't hold a position on anything. Like, yes, okay, in a fully carbon neutral world, we would all return to subsistence farming, living in log cabins, you know, distributed across agroforestry land all across the country. But unfortunately, no one wants to live their life like that.
Where am I supposed to put my shopping, Ollie? Ollie, you know, like a plastic bag in the shop.
Yeah.
If a plastic bag, they're selling it to me now. Before I used to get a plastic bag free.
Liam, if you buy a bag for life once, you can keep bringing that with you to the shop.
I bought a bag for life. No, but I bought bag for life. But I'm talking sometimes, like, you know, when you're out and about, I don't walk around with a bag of life. But what I'm saying is, you know, even these bags for life or whatever, right? But it doesn't matter. What I'm saying is, I buy the plastic bag. I'm shopping in your shop. Where do you want me to do? Put it in my pockets. You know, listen, I'm not worried about the bag for life, because what I'm trying to say is, if the plastic bag is that so detrimental, and which it is, and the plastics and the oceans and everything else, what they're saying.
Yep.
You know, why
It is
do you
bad, by the
why are
way.
you selling it to me? What's the madness? You're selling me a plastic bag that used to be free for 10p, then it went to 20p, then it went to 50p. Some shop charged me 60p for the plastic bag. But it's my right to buy this plastic bag and carry my shopping in it. But what I'm saying is, if you don't want to, if you don't want it to harm the planet, right? When you stop the manufacturing of it, how many people are going to lose their jobs? How many people are going to be out of work?
Liam, I don't really follow your logic. I don't understand what you're upset about, to be honest with you.
Well, no, what I'm saying is, like, you know, you're talking about like ULEZ and whatever.
Yep.
I'm talking about the money it costs £12.50 every day for to drive the van around. Then I'm paying the petrol. I'm paying tax. I'm paying tax on what I'm earning. I'm paying tax.
Yep.
I might as well give up my job. You know what? Call it a day. Go and sign on and get some benefit. Right? Because you know what? That would be better for me because I won't have to stress anymore. I won't have to worry anymore. You know. And then when you go to the customer and the customer says, that's a bit expensive or whatever, you know, because you know we're in a cost of living or whatever, and they ask like to bring our price down or say, what can you do? And you do the best you can do for people.
Or
don't rip anybody off.
Liam, you could buy a bag for life, which costs between 50p and £1, or you could buy a ULEZ compliant car. I think the cheapest ones going at the moment are about £5,000. You're making you're setting up these false equivalences and like straw men of you know it's all or nothing. It's not the world we live in. You know, you can mitigate these things you're talking about. And actually, Liam, I'm not sure why,
Oli,
but you're coming across as very angry at the world.
No, Oli, I'm not angry at the world. What I'm trying to say is, Oli, you know, like ULEZ, whatever your debate is, right? ULEZ, whatever. Let's just part it, right? ULEZ, it don't really bother me either way, but I'm just saying the effect it has on people with less money and people who are trying to, it discriminates, you know? Okay, because people that can afford buy cars. You know, I'm more worried about the knife crime in London than I am ULEZ.
Okay, we're getting a little bit off topic here, Liam. I'm not saying that knife crime is more or less important than ULEZ. All things can be considered equally. Thank you for your call. Good to talk to you this morning. It doesn't follow me. It doesn't work to my mind that, you know, you have to go to extremes. You have to ban this or you have to ban that in order for it to work. And I think it's possible to sort of, maybe the timing could be better, but people's lungs aren't going to wait around for that sort of thing, are they? Also, and then finally, this argument that, you know, ULEZ discriminates against the poorest people. Well, so does air pollution, and actually the poorest people don't own cars in London. But like I said earlier, don't let the facts get in the way of your feelings. Abigail's in Balham. Abigail, what do you reckon?
If you to directly answer the question, it's very difficult to buy a home. But what I would like to do, because I don't like doing this thing of not directly answering the question, I also think, so excuse me, I've been ill, so I'm just trying to recover.
Okay. Just take a second there, Abigail. I'll just drop you down so you can clear your throat, and everyone else doesn't have to listen. I'll bring you back in now. Okay. What would you like to say?
Basically, what I'm saying is this: I think maybe we're looking at it from the wrong perspective. Two things. Number one, you mentioned the housing benefit. When you say, I get really angry, and I mean it, absolutely angry, when people keep saying that we pay housing benefit to people. We pay housing benefit to millionaires is what we do. Millionaires don't pay people properly. And because people are working, you mentioned working 2, some people work 3 jobs. Because people are working 2, possibly 3 jobs, and because they are being underpaid, the government basically subsidises multi-millionaires such as Amazon and whoever else to pay people badly, to pay people poorly. If people were paid a proper salary or work whatever it is per hour, then they wouldn't need to apply for housing benefits.
Abigail, what do you think it says about our society this private rented sector, because I described it earlier, and I genuinely mean this. I think it's wealth redistribution in completely the wrong direction. It makes me deeply unhappy that I think the right way to think about this is that there's a wage class and an asset class, and that it's essentially wealth redistribution in completely the wrong direction.
This is what I'm saying. I'm agreeing with you, Ollie. I'm actually agreeing with you. We have a go at people on housing benefit. People don't realise that 40, it might even be 50%, probably higher, of the people that are on housing benefit actually work full-time. People don't acknowledge that.
Yep.
And it makes me really cross that people don't. We are paying millionaires to pay people badly. That's what we're doing.
Whatever happened, Abigail, to a society where you could put a roof over not just your family's head, but when I say family, I mean immediate family, but a multi-generational home with one or two salaries. That for me is a vision of a society that I would want to live in.
Right, you say that, Ollie. You say that, but I listen because I haven't been well for about 3 weeks. I'm just getting better now.
Oh, I'm glad to hear it.
I was listening to you a few nights ago, and this lady, probably my age range, she rang up and she said to you that she was living in a 4-generational home. And she said to you...
We're talking about inheritance tax.
Exactly. And you were really mean-spirited to her. She was providing a home, by the sounds of it, for about four generations. Her children, her grandkids, and her great-grand, I think she said. Her great-grandchildren. And she was doing that. And you were saying, well, your house is worth 1.5. The reason why a house is worth all that money is because the whole thing is skewed up. It's upside-down thinking.
Yeah.
Your home, let me finish, please. Your home should be where you live. It should be a shelter. It should not be viewed as an asset.
I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that analysis, Abigail. I totally agree that it should be viewed as almost a human right, and that if it happens to make a little bit of money on it, I'm absolutely fine with that. I think it's a solid bricks and mortar. It's a solid investment, right? But the idea that something can change. I think I can't remember the sums exactly that lady brought, but I seem to remember we ran the sums, and the house had basically 10 times in value from what they'd bought it for. It was now worth more than £1 million, and she was taking issue with the fact. No, it's not. No, it's not her fault. But the idea that she
was providing home for 5 generations of people.
Abigail, the idea.
5 generations of people.
Yeah, absolutely. But the idea that she's in some way hard done by because she now has a house that's worth more than £1 million is for the birds.
Yes, she was. It's not for the birds.
It is.
It's because people don't agree with you. They're not for the birds. People can have different views from you, Ollie.
Yeah, absolutely.
I could say what you say is for the birds. It's very disdainful and it's very off-key. It's not for the birds. It's just a different viewpoint to yours.
Well,
a lot of things you say I agree with, and a lot of things you say I don't agree with.
That's the nature of politics.
Well, exactly.
The idea that someone who has £1 million in assets isn't wealthy. She does have £1 million in assets.
She doesn't have £1 million.
She does.
She has a home for her family. That's what she has.
Right. Okay. Abigail, the purpose of this phone-in is not to litigate a call we had a week or so ago, so I think we're going to have to draw a line under it there. But thank you for calling nonetheless. Kevin's in Oxford. A second, Kevin, should we abolish the monarchy?
Of course we shouldn't abolish the monarchy, Ollie, for God's sake, man. It's our history. This country reveres, adores the monarchy. Look when the Queen passed, how the streets were laden with people. It's just all gaslighting, Ollie, again. Gaslighting? You're talking about revolutions. Who's lead the revolution? You? What, mophead students like you, Ollie, lead the revolution? I mean, you couldn't lead your way to the back door of a pub.
What's my haircut got to do with it?
Well, because, Ollie, there's no revolution in this country. People adore the monarchy.
I wasn't calling for a revolution, Kevin.
You said to your last call, and I quote, how are we going to do it? A revolution?
I said, how would you want to do it, referendum or revolution? Which was a slightly glib way of me asking him if he thought a referendum would be a useful way of getting it. It's
a glib way of asking people, should we revolt against the monarchy? I mean, once upon a time, that was treason where I come from, Ollie. But, it's okay for you young Westminster bubble people to live in their own bubbles.
Don't threaten me with a good time, Kevin.
No, let me tell you something, Ollie. You're out of touch. You really are. I'd love to take you out in the working class areas of London and the suburbs, and go into public houses where working class people go, sportsmen's clubs, and talk to the public. You'd be strung up, Ollie, the way you speak. You'll
be strung up.
You're leaning towards communism, Ollie. You're quite a funny little chap. You're leaning towards a common.
Who do you think?
And you know something, Ollie? Can I give you some advice?
Who do you think's more disconnected from regular people, Kevin? Me or King Charles?
Well, let me tell you something about King Charles. Of course, it's the monarchy. But do you know what? He's a God-fearing, nice man. Do you want Trump? Do you want someone like Trump to run the country?
I just need to believe in God and it'll be all right.
No, you can. Here we go. Believe in God. Well, of course, you won't believe in anything apart from your Westminster bubble and your champagne socialism.
Why do you think,
Ollie?
Kevin? When you call me Kevin, when you
Yes.
call me a champagne socialist, right?
Yes.
Why is it that me holding progressive views negates my political positions?
They're not progressive. They're not progressive, Ollie. You think they're progressive. That's your opinion.
Okay, I'll phrase it a different way. What about me?
Ollie,
what about me holding?
Take your opinions down to working class areas and see what happens to your opinions.
Well, I imagine we'd probably have a conversation. We'd probably talk about it. But you seem to hold working class people in quite low regard. You think they'd attack me? You seem to hold working class people in quite low regard. You think they would attack me because I hold left wing political positions?
No, they might have a revolution like you're calling for.
I'm not calling for a revolution, Kevin.
You're inciting. You're inciting a riot.
Are you kidding me?
Should we have a revolution?
Are you kidding me? No, I'm asking people if we should abolish the monarchy.
Half a dozen listeners, Ollie. You're gaslighting your half a dozen listeners. Now, let me give you a bit of advice, Ollie. If you don't like this country, go abroad like I did. I worked abroad for 10 years, and I was glad to get back here. I was glad to get back to this lovely country to work and prosper again. So go abroad, Ollie. Go to where they have these presidents and these people and see how you like it. And then come back and talk about it. Because at the moment, you're only a bit of a kid, a bit of a student that is just talking out the back of his head.
Kevin, I don't understand. I can understand. Well, I think I do understand this because you're angry. But to tell me that you sound pretty angry, pal.
No, you sound angry calling for revolution.
When you say things to me like you are a student, you are a champagne socialist. Have you considered instead? You are. Well, okay, maybe those things are true. Maybe those things are true.
You speak for yourself.
Have you considered actually engaging with the substance of the arguments I'm making rather than just insulting me?
The substance of the argument are, Ollie, that the people revere and adore the royal family in this country. People adore them. People revere them. Look at when the Queen's passing, how people were openly weeping on the streets, Ollie.
The initial results of the polling before they release the rest of it show that it's about 50% of people.
Polling. Listen, did you think the polling predicted the Brexit?
Facts.
No, Ollie,
facts.
Polling. Listen, polling said we wouldn't Brexit. We Brexited. Polling said Trump wouldn't get in, and he got in. Don't worry about polling. We've done plenty of polling where I work. We poll the people all the time where I work.
It's kind of, Kevin, it's kind of relevant. It's kind of relevant because your entire argument is people love the monarchy. So, we have to produce some kind of factual evidence. There we go. We were interrupted there. Sorry, 1 second. We'll go back to Kevin in a second, I think, if we can get him on the line. We just had a slight malfunction here, but we're okay. We're still here, don't worry. Kevin, if you're still there, I do want to get you back on. I'm not sure if your line's still up. I'm not sure necessarily what happened, but we'll see if we can get you back on. I certainly do still love this country. The idea that I don't love this country, I tell you this. The reason I criticise this country, the reason I look for ways to improve it is because I love it. And the idea that I would leave just because I don't like the monarchy is ridiculous. The idea that because I'm critical of the monarchy, I can't stay in this country or I should go elsewhere is ridiculous. I criticise this country because that's what my patriotism means to me. The patriotic thing is to critically engage with it, see how it could be better, and I think it would be much more democratic to have someone else, anyone else, ideally someone elected, in place as head of state. And just because, I don't know, to be honest with you, that feels like a slightly more modern way of thinking about things than just adoring the monarchy and revering the monarchy, which feels slightly like a feudal system. I don't know. Kevin's back. Kevin, what do you make of that?
Well, I appreciate your lovely words of wanting to move forward, and get away from the monarchy. But the monarchy's been there for hundreds of years, and this is what makes this country great. We don't want people like Trump, presidents. We want, and they do a lot of good for the country. Now, your callers again, they need to get their facts. They bring in more money than they take out the monarchy. Now, they need to bring some facts in. And honestly, Ollie, as for this polling, you've got to appreciate, do your homework, do your research. Polling is not always the way it appears. It wasn't right in Brexit, and it wasn't right for Trump, and it wasn't right for many things. So you can't just go to a poll sheet and say, oh, that's what the polls say.
Yeah, but
I suggest you do, Ollie. Ollie, no, I'm being fair with you. You're only a young chap. You're only a young chap.
Do you think you're being fair with me? I think you're being patronising.
Ollie, you're a young chap. I'm going to give you some slack. You're a young chap. You're not as knowledgeable as older people.
Shall I cut you some slack because you're old?
Get out, Ollie. Get out to the working class areas. Go out, introduce yourself.
I do.
And stop drinking in your little wine bars, probably in Soho, wherever you go.
Don't you live in Oxford?
Get out and meet the people.
What's going on here?
Meet the people, Ollie.
I do meet the people.
Talk to the working people. No, you don't, Ollie.
I do.
You wouldn't have. If you did speak to people, you'd be shocked how many people adore and love the monarchy.
Interesting.
Honestly, Ollie, and that's not me being down on you or anything. You're just a youngster that's coming up in a big world, and you've just got to get your facts a bit right, Ollie. Because you gaslight. I know you're paid to gaslight. That's how you get your phone calls.
You're right. You're right. Yeah. You're right. Yeah. It's on my contract. That's what I'm here for. Gaslighter in chief. Kevin, I do this at the weekends on my Saturdays and Sundays. During the day, in the week, I work for a company called Politics Joe. We make videos, video journalism, out and about. I've been to plenty of places in this country. I'm not some kind of Westminster bubble kid. I'm very rarely actually in Westminster. I'm not a holder of a lobby pass. I come from the West Midlands. The person on the other side of the screen, who you can't hear, my producer, is from a working class background who grew up on a council estate. This idea that we are some sort of like ivory towered ruling class elite, I think you're blinded, to be honest with you. Who do you think has more privilege? The king that you adore, the king that you can't get enough of, or me here in this studio? What do you reckon?
Ollie, you've just contradicted yourself. You said people from working class areas, council estates, can't make good. You clearly make good. You're on the radio.
When did I say they can't make good?
You was agreeing with a caller there not 10 minutes ago that people from council estates can't, prove themselves and get like the royals and like people from affluent areas.
I think you might be gaslighting me now, Kevin.
I'm gaslighting you. Ollie, listen, I wish you a happy new year. You're a lovely chap. You just need to broaden your horizons.
Can I ask?
Happy new year, Ollie.
I'm
sure you're a lovely chap, Ollie.
Thank you, Kevin.
But you're paid to gaslight, Ollie, and I think you're doing your job well.
Can I ask you one thing? Can I ask you one thing before you go? How does it taste?
How does remain friends?
How does it taste?
How does what taste?
The boot.
Oh, I don't think, Ollie, you would ever, a man of my age experience, I don't think you'd ever give me the boot. But to be honest with you, Ollie.
Oh, it's not the boot I was talking about, Kevin. Talking about the boot you're licking. Thank you for your call. Appreciate it nonetheless. Bobby is in Slough. Bobby, good morning. What do you make of this? Should Donald Trump be barred from standing?
First of all, Happy New Year and Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas to you too.
Yeah. First of all, I've heard your previous couple of callers about talking about Trump and this and that. Let me tell you something. A lot of people don't know that there was a civil war in America in 1860. Okay, Jefferson Davis.
Do a lot of people not know that?
Jefferson Davis was elected in Montgomery and Alabama, okay, and 13 states seceded.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now...
And it's from which we get Section 3.
Whether you think he's a hero or a tyrant, he decided to destroy that.
Abraham Lincoln. Do people think Abraham Lincoln was a tyrant?
Well, it depends. Do you think the southern states? Do you think that Alabama and Mississippi and Florida don't think that?
Well, I think there are some people who sort of yearn for the Confederacy.
It went on for 5 years, so there is a problem there. Okay, that problem hasn't gone away. Okay, now Trump, all right, the southern states Then you had, forget World War II, you had Vietnam. The majority of the soldiers that went to Vietnam were the southern states. Okay?
The draft was national, wasn't it? I mean, it's...
No, Northerns didn't go. The northern community... America is divided between North and South.
Bobby, I'm not sure. I think we're going to have to keep it factual if we're going to keep up the conversation. Thank you. John is in Geneva in Switzerland. John, good morning. How are you?
Hello, Oli.
Morning.
Good morning. Yeah, I'd just like to ground the conversation a little bit. And first of all, in terms of, you're talking about weather, or what's changing the weather. We can only predict the weather in 3 to 5 days, realistically. What we're talking about here actually is climate change. And that is largely developed over decades and hundreds of years and thousands of years. And if some of the I am involved with some organizations like the UNFCCC who are responsible for climate change. And some of the charts that I've seen, are staggering. They show that, the Industrial Revolution in Britain, about 10 years later, you see a massive spike in carbon dioxide equivalent in the atmosphere. And it continues to grow. And people who say now that Britain are only 1% or 2% or whatever they say of carbon dioxide, they've already loaded the atmosphere. And these gases that go up. Are you still there?
I'm still listening. Yeah, for sure. I'm still here. Don't worry.
These gases that go up, they last 100 to 1,000 or even many thousands of years. These industrial gases. So we've precharged the atmosphere. And the poor people in India or Pacific Islands and so on are turning around and saying, you're telling us now to buy expensive solar panels. We can't afford them. You guys have lifted up all this gas, and it's still there. And they're right. That's what the science says. And it annoys me greatly. Yes, we should, as good Europeans, go out and recycle our stuff and do everything we can. But we have, we have some responsibility that some nations in Western Europe have become extremely wealthy.
Yeah, absolutely. We got rich off it. We got rich off it. John, could you talk a little bit for me about what the sort of the view of this issue is like where you are in Switzerland, and perhaps how it's different? I mean, you probably will have heard some of the callers so far here in Britain sort of denying to a certain extent the extent to which man has an input on climate change. Is that a view that you find in your dealings in Switzerland?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's absolutely accepted, and you've got a choice when you pay your bills in Switzerland. You can buy green energy or non-green energy, and
really, you can choose.
Sure.
That's pretty cool, isn't it? What's the price difference?
Right now, I off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you. But it's enough. It's 10 to 20%. It's probably around that.
Do you know people who opt to choose the higher tariff for the environmental purposes?
Sure.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Many people do. Yeah. And what you can do is, there's a geography here is a little bit more different. But they have systems where when the sun shines, they use solar power to pump water up the mountains, and then when it doesn't shine, they let it flow back down, and then it generates energy through turbines. We can do this. This is not rock science. We have solutions. not in every place of the world, but you know, it's extremely frustrating that people talk about weather and we just got to, you know, it's going to cost us more money to do recycling or whatever it might be. But in reality, you know, the UK has been responsible for a huge percentage of the gases that are floating around in the atmosphere causing these problems. And regardless of what they want, you know, what they what they put out today, it doesn't matter. The damage is already done.
John, thank you for your call. Lovely to talk to you. Great to chat. Rupert is in Gatwick. Rupert, good morning. Who's responsible for the weather?
Oh, good morning, Ollie. There's nothing that we can do about it. No one is responsible for the weather.
Really?
Because we are just plain human beings. We are not gods. We cannot influence the climate. We have about as much power as a flea has on the back of an elephant. That's how puny we are. You think about the cosmic forces. You think about all the forces of the universe, right?
What about 6 billion of us?
How big the universe is?
What about 6 billion of us? What about 6 billion of us? You said there's one of us is like a flea on an elephant.
Absolutely nothing at all to the climate. Because you think about it, right? These floods, right, we've been having.
Yeah.
I mean, I can remember early 1979. You know, I was a wee lad. I was a wee schoolboy then. I can remember, right? Early 79, we had blizzards, we had snowstorms, record blizzards, record snowstorms.
Yeah.
And then followed by flooding across the whole of the country.
Yeah.
You know, that was before, you know, this global warming,
but it wasn't
change nonsense.
It wasn't actually. It wasn't actually. It wasn't before it, was it? It's been going on since. It wasn't before it, was it? It's been going on since the Industrial Revolution. Let's interrogate this a little bit more, Rupert. Let's try and find out which part of scientific fact it is you disagree with.
I disagree with all of it. It's all made up.
Okay, so when we burn materials, when we burn carbon-based materials, do you accept that emits CO2, carbon dioxide?
Yes.
Okay, and so when you then add up what we burn, we can figure out roughly how much CO2 we emit. Do you accept that as well?
It makes no difference whatsoever. It's equivalent to us all breathing out at the same time. We all breathe out carbon dioxide as human beings, as animals on planet Earth.
Yeah.
We all breathe out at the same time. It's not going to warm up the planet at once, is it?
But previously, there was a balance between the natural world, a very fine balance, by the way, between all of the by sort of animalistic life and plant life, right? And that the lungs of the earth, the trees, were able to process the carbon dioxide emitted by the breathing of other animals and in turn output oxygen. The difference now is the widespread industrialization of our society and the burning of fossil fuels, which emit far more carbon dioxide. Let's keep going with the science of this. So, do you accept that CO2 absorbs heat?
CO2 absorbs heat.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure about that, to be honest. It's a long time ago since I did physics and chemistry in school, and CO2. I know moisture absorbs heat. I know liquids and solids they absorb heat.
Well, CO2 does absorb.
Yeah. Carbon dioxide.
Yeah, it does.
It's a gas, isn't it?
It is a gas. Yeah, it does absorb heat. So we're burning these carbon-based materials. You accept that releases CO2. We're doing more so of that than we've ever done before. We can account for how much we're burning because of these power stations, and we can also measure it in the atmosphere, the higher content of CO2 in the atmosphere, and we can also trace that it's coming from these sources. And you also accept that CO2 does absorb heat. So all of those things mean that we're trapping more heat within the atmosphere.
No, not really. It's a drop in the ocean. You know, the amount of CO2 we're putting out. You know,
why not
the
really?
The amount of heat that we are artificially generating. It's a drop in the ocean. It's like you urinate in the Pacific Ocean. It makes no difference whatsoever.
Yeah, but if you
absolutely no difference.
If you have billions of people urinating all at the same time in the Pacific Ocean, and then those billions of people then create factories to output more urine into the Pacific Ocean, you can see that eventually the saline, the quality of the water might start to get polluted.
Well, look, the Earth is a hermetically sealed unit. It's self-sufficient. It's self-generating and self-regulating. No matter what we do to it, it will recover. And, I've been, doing some studying on this.
That is the thing I want to interrogate, though, Rupert. That's the thing I want to interrogate, because I have absolutely no doubt that the planet will continue. Life on Earth, actually, will probably continue. The contentious part of this, for me, is that human society will not be able to continue in the way that it is. I have absolutely no doubt there'll be fish in the sea. There'll be other types of life. Maybe if it gets really bad, there might just be some kind of microbial bacteria. That's what we'll have to settle for. But there'll still be life on planet Earth. But the idea that we can continue to exist in the way that we do, that human civilization can continue to exist in the way that we do, I think is unlikely.
No, I think we can. I mean, look, we have the technology now. We are clever enough to make spaceships and fly to. Oh yeah. Well, with Space Shuttle, we landed on the moon. The human, representatives of the human race, as it were, Earthlings, as it were. Not you and me, literally, but human beings have set foot on the moon. We always, there's always some kind of space project going on. If it's not China, if it's America or Russia, go sending satellites out, and sending astronauts out. If we continue, if we evolve at the rate that we're evolving now, progressing now, rather scientifically, in the matter of a few hundred years, we can literally colonize different galaxies. We can colonize planets hundreds of millions of light years away. Because if you think about it, right, about 500 years ago, if we were to tell people that in 500 years' time we'd be able to fly at twice the speed of sound. No, faster than that. The fastest military plane, I think, can do 3,000 odd miles an hour. Blackbird, something like 3,300 miles an hour.
Rupert, would it be safe to say that you're quite impressed?
Say you were mad.
Rupert,
in that space of time, we've progressed that much. Think about what we can do in hundreds and thousands of years from now.
Would it be fair to say you're quite impressed with the science that puts a rocket into space and puts a man on the moon? That's pretty impressive stuff.
Pretty impressive stuff, yes.
So when those same scientists have a 99% consensus that man-made activity, man-made carbon emissions are warming the planet, why don't you listen to them?
They're not. I don't think they're the same scientists. I don't think
I'm looking at the NASA website right now. Global temperatures are rising, the ocean is getting warmer, the ice sheets are shrinking, glaciers are retreating, snow cover is decreasing, sea levels are rising, Arctic sea is declining, extreme events are increasing in frequency, ocean acidification is increasing. This is the NASA website I've just read out to you there.
Well, they're only temporary, aren't they? These global temperatures rising, and falling, and ice caps and glaciers melting and freezing. This is a cycle. It's a natural cycle.
But Rupert, the point is,
climatic cycles.
The point is, yes, climate changes throughout history, but the way that it's warming at present is happening at a rate at which no one has seen. That's not been seen for the past 10,000 years, and that the cause is our emissions.
No, I don't believe that. Because
why?
Look, because
what's your basis? When I present you with this evidence, you have to come back with something more than just I'm not buying it.
Listen. Look, temperature's only been taken for the last since the Industrial Revolution. 1800 something. I mean, what are the temperatures? During Roman times. I think you said the Roman times. Yeah, I think we spoke about this last week. I mean, this part of the world, Northern Europe, was warmer back in Roman times and Saxon times than now. So, no one, we haven't got any temperatures going back to Roman times or the times of the ancient Egyptians, have we?
Let's say that climactic change, which has happened, you were talking about the Roman times, so we're talking 2,000 years ago. Let's say that change happens in the space of 10 or 20 years. Can you see how that would be pretty catastrophic for the ecosystems on the planet?
Yeah, but it hasn't, has it? I mean, it's just.
But it is happening.
It's just manipulation. It's just statistics being manipulated. I'm far too, let's say, far too cynical and wise, to be falling for that.
Right. Well, I guess, as the saying goes, you can prove anything with facts. Rupert, thank you for your call.